Yeah, and
An advertisement once.
so the dogs were all states.
Think again.
8 or it was all hospital. So that's been this money.
So we're live, so. it is,
76. I didn't see the fourth.
Yeah.
Stop watching. I think it's over.
35
bombs like right in the 5 yards.
So we're just, as we finalize the, our discussion, we'll move on. Okay,
Okay, sounds good. So we're starting with operating, right, Jason?
Yeah, we're gonna start with operating for facilities and recreation, then we'll go into capital.
Okay. Sounds good. So starting at the top, operating for Parks and Rec. So the way operating for Parks and Rec, or I guess the way the wages section, which is the first section we're talking about, it's broken down kind of by facility. So we have partial wages and associated costs with our parks, playgrounds, and beaches. And then on the next page, we'll get into another wages section for the community center, which is where the bulk of it is billed to. We have so again with this budget, a lot of the increase is being driven by wage increases that are associated with our new collective agreement. So that's very, very set in stone. So you'll see some changes in the first line there. A couple other things I want to point out in this first section. It's largely remained very consistent, with the exception there's been a slight increase in the grounds and landscaping of a couple $1,000s. That is in conjunction with the cenotaph budget that's listed at 9,000. So what we did here was broke out the request from the horticultural club. So the cenotaph we tried to keep separate. There's the request for the maintenance that was included in the horticultural club's work plan for this year, and then we have a couple other costs related to hydro and just general maintenance. But the additional, instead of putting it all into that one, which is what we did last year, which is why you see 12,000 in the 2024 final budget. Instead of doing that, we broke it out and put the extra increase that they requested into grounds and landscaping. The reason being is because that's not all for the cenotaph. There's like planters around the community and different things like that. So that's why you see the differences. Going into revenues. Revenues generally consistent. A lot of our programming revenues are fairly consistent year to year for soccer and some of the drop-ins, whether it be the hip hop classes that we're running or the volleyball registrations. The one change here, we are going to apply, or we intended to apply for Canada Day funding again. So the conditional grant section, that includes a projected 5,000, which is what we've been approved for in the past, as well as 1,500 for participation. So that's 6,500 under the conditional section in the revenues section.
Just a quick question. You got the soccer program, just for the viewers more than anything else. What are the numbers, kids? Like, do you have any idea how many kids?
Yeah, it varies year to year, but the past couple of years we've been anywhere from low 200s to high 200s.
That's great.
Yeah, that's a combination program between us and Calendar, but we have the bulk of the children, and we do accept some from Chisholm, Bonfield, some of the surrounding areas.
Great job.
I can remember years and years ago, I think the concept of the program was about 5,000 in revenue. We've not increased the fee for a child that plays soccer to like, that's how much driving 16,000 the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always been about, I believe, $75 for the first child and $65 for every.
Yeah, there's a slight break for additional children.
And that's not really changed over the years very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's our most popular program in recreation for sure. Okay, going on to the outdoor rink, or actually no, sorry, I missed the expenditure section for programming. This one here is actually one to talk about. So community events, the second line in expenditures, 14,000. This is an entirely new budget line that we never previously included. A lot of this was actually previously under general administration budget, I believe, Jason. Yes, so this covers things like, we've been starting to do more community type events and we thought we needed to have a dedicated line item for it, and recreation seemed to make sense rather than either council budget or general administration. So this 14,000 includes 7,500 for a Canada Day event, 4,500 for a Light Up the Park event in December, and then 2,500 for various other events that just come up through the year that we need to either provide refreshments, entertainment, et cetera for. So this 14,000 is kind of an amalgamation of things that previously existed in other budgets, but it is an entirely new line item, so it is driving a bit of an increase in the recreation budget overall. Moving on to the outdoor rink. Outdoor rink is very consistent. We don't spend a lot of money maintaining it. We have wages for a part-time employee that works at the rink yearly. And other than that, we have minimal costs associated with equipment maintenance and insurance. It stayed very consistent.
Just if I may, on the salaries for actuals for outdoor rink, we budget that there's an outdoor rink attendant, I believe it's 20 hours a week, right?
We say between 20 and 24 roughly, depending on the week.
But we budget a certain figure for the problem. I mean, it's not that it's a problem. You're outdoor rink either, it's all weather conditions, right? So sometimes the ice is in earlier some years than others. Sometimes we're getting into January, we're just making ice at that point because we've had Christmas that we're almost doing. Then you hope that you're at least gonna have an outdoor rink past March break. And then it happens where, oh, we lost it the week before March break. So that's why we budget to have it open so long and at that many hours, because the hours dictate when the skate room's open. And then normally we're in the budget.
Well, eventually you need part the season lasts longer. We'll flood earlier, it'll last longer, but again, it's a budget thing.
Yeah. We did some other stuff, so we were.
Ice, still approved for ice for that. We'll get into discussions about ice later, but it was because the cost came in much higher than what was when we applied for it. So that's what happened with the cover.
Okay, moving on to the community center. So this is where the bulk of the activity happens. So very first line, this is a change more so in recording and accounting, and Jason will be able to better speak to this, but the parkland dedication fees, we previously, you see in past years, there's a revenue figure associated with that. And we basically just recorded the amount that we took in for parkland dedication fees from planning applications as a revenue. But maybe Jason, if you could, yeah.
How parkland dedication works, our reserve fund policy speaks to anything we bring from parkland dedication should go straight to reserves to be used at a later date. If we budget, so last year we budgeted $15,000 to make the budget work. That's saying we're gonna collect 15,000 and spend 15,000 on recreation. If we leave it zero, it means anything that comes in this year is going straight to reserve. We're not gonna spend it. So if you see in other years, we have utilized parkland dedication for revenues to balance the budget, basically. How it works at the end of the year, if we have a surplus in the department, then we'll move the money from parkland into the reserve. But that's what our budget speaks to now. I think last year was a bit of a slip up to have 15 budgeted. What that's saying is we're gonna collect 15 and spend it. And I think our intention was always that it would go straight to revenues. Same as fire marking, discussion with that. So what I've had them doing now in the accounting software, as soon as anything comes in for that, it goes straight to reserves and not to the revenue because it's something we've got to flip at year end every year. So right now, we've not budgeted to have usage of the reserve for recreation.
Was it earmarked at least? When it goes into budget?
It'll go into reserves. Yeah.
Can you, sorry, were you going to say something, Councillor Josh? Okay, then, pardon me, in reserves, do you know offhand how much we have?
Oh, I'd have to calculate the one for this. You can see though in 2024, I mean, we had $29,000 of receipts,
Yeah,
quite substantial.
So,
And there's nothing wrong with using it from year to year. I mean, that's what it's there for.
That's what it's there for.
Recreation. But I think the idea all the time was we would put it aside for a project, something like.
at the same time, the government met last time, they were looking at making changes to these regulations. They were saying that one of the problems was municipalities were holding on to these funds, these reserves, and not using them. And so, I mean, there's a balance there, right?
Yeah.
But certainly that could be an area that could be for us to look at.
Yep.
Yeah. Would it be possible later on to advise us on what's in the reserve?
Yep.
But knowing that we'll have future projects, but knowing as well that we're going to apply for grants.
Yeah, we collect a fair amount of parkland dedication, so it's definitely something to keep an eye on year to year and see if it can be used for a project. One of the main reasons why I bring it up though is it does represent a pretty big departure from 2024 actuals. So when you see the final numbers, we're $30,000 difference right there just because it's not recorded as revenue for this year. So it does have a noticeable impact. Back to moving down the line items. So going with ice rentals, our actuals for 2024 were 218,000. That's including all invoices up until December 31st of last year. We budgeted 218,000 again. The rink is as busy as it's ever been. We're fully back and even beyond pre-COVID kind of levels. So we're continuing to book on the same kind of consistent basis. So I think we'll hit those same revenues this year. And then going down, we're up a bit on hall rentals. We have a couple bookings for this year that I think will drive us beyond the 6,500 we did last year. So I budgeted 9,000 there. So I think we'll bring in a little more. The rest of the costs are either zero or consistent with previous years. Moving now to expenditures. So we have about a $30,000 increase in salaries and wages as a result of collective agreement increases. The rest of the next about half down here are associated, all the ancillary costs to wages. Moving down, the rest of this page is pretty static costs, with the exception of conference course seminars, the very last line on this page. I just wanted to bring this up because I know we had a conversation earlier when Antoine was presenting his budget about training. So we budgeted 2,500. I'm working with Adam and Kim to get an up-to-date schedule of where everyone in the Parks Department is at with their training. We know that some of them are due for certain things, whether it's propane handling or chainsaw courses or first aid. And we know there's going to be a bit of catch up from things that were kind of not done through COVID. And then we just didn't have a clear picture of it. So we're going to catch up on some of those things this year. So that's why 2,500 is budgeted for training. The next page. The rest of the costs on this page are minor costs associated with either local meetings, mileage, stationary office costs, and these are costs that we incur basically the same amount every year. If anyone has any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer, but otherwise I think they're pretty static. The only one, I guess, is the last one, Sports Hall of Fame. So we didn't have any nominations this year, so we won't be having an event. So that's why there's no costs associated with that. Going on to expenditures. The big ones here to highlight are equipment maintenance and building maintenance. So these costs represent both our ongoing agreement with Simcoe for the maintenance of our ice plant and then general maintenance associated with the building. There is an increase, projected increase anyways. It's tough to know exact figures, but with hydro, furnace oil and insurance premiums, these are all up by varying margins, but they definitely drive a bit of the budget increase.
The actual furnace oil for 2024, we're not settled. It's a year end. As well, we allocate some club. So there's work done there. Hydro and insurance premiums are the actual 07 and 110.
Section is the curling club. Curling club revenues in line with past years. Then expenditures, these are all very consistent as well. And then you'll see, there's no 2024 actuals for furnace oil because of what Jason just mentioned. Next section is the fitness center. Same revenue across the board, essentially the same expenditures across the board. Moving on to the library, I guess with the annual levy, that would be discussed separately, Jason, the library.
Yeah, I will touch on building maintenance though, as we've always kept some in there over the years. The idea is that the library is a tenant, we're the landlord. Some things do come up that's not able to be paid for through the library's budget. I mean, they've got sickness. One thing we need to do is we've got grant money from Ontario Children's Foundation when we did the space renovation of the library. One of the other was running power to the outside shed. That was part of the grant, but what happens, we had ran over on other items. We fully spent the grant money, we just couldn't tackle that item. So I've put money in here above what they normally have to be able to tackle that and get them power to the shed. And then the annual levy is what was presented this morning to council, 209-108.
Okay, next one, another commercial lease, and this one is Canada Post at the arena. That one is very consistent year to year.
I set aside 100 for building maintenance in case something comes up. You can see in the past, there's been little amounts. 1,000 was always there because you can't really do anything with 100, but it's tight this year. So we're hoping that there's nothing and yeah.
And then we're 0 next one is the Corbeil Park Hall.
The reason those are zeros, that's the old hair salon, which became Canada Post. So it was a separate lease, had separate costs in that in the past. What we've done is combine them.
So mention that, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so with the Corbeil Park Hall, we have revenues for hall rentals and then the yearly amount we get from the Club Action 50 Plus. Expenditures are in line with past years. We don't anticipate any major building repair expenses or any major projects going on there.
The actuals for the Senior Active Living Center revenues, that shows 0 and we budgeted 15. We've not done our year-end portion to allocate. What we do is there's a formula between us and the seniors where they pay half of the building costs to a maximum of half of their subsidy from the government. It's a unwritten kind of agreement that we've had. So we've still got to reconcile that part for year-end. Some of these things are normally captured and dealt with, but we're early in budget this year, right? I mean, the year just flipped for January. So that's why some of those items.
Okay, so that brings us to the end and you will notice the final totals. So for general operating for 2025 final, 2024 and 2024 actuals. So again, a huge part of this is the parkland dedication not being recorded as revenues. Then some of it is the 2024 actuals not being included. And then wages associated with the collective agreement. We're almost 50,000 there, and then 14,000 for the community events line item, which never previously existed in the budget. So that's how you get to the difference between the two.
One thing if we can mention about the community events, Greg, is we budgeted to get 5,000 for Canada Day with expenses being 7,500. So our cost being 2,500. The discussion we'd had is if we don't get $5,000 in funding, we can't run a $7,500 Canada Day event based on this budget. The idea would be then that we do $2,500 event. We do know last year's event was about $500 is what the costs were for prizes and that, right? So, I mean, it's still a bigger event than last year, but it's not a $7,500 event if we don't get the funding. As well, we could apply for 5,000 and spend 5,000 and not have 7,500. That's an idea as well, but we've not, without knowing the funding piece, it's hard to kind of plan at this point what the event would look like, so.
But myself personally, I'm very interested in us looking at what's in the reserves for part-time dedication. I mean, in a sense, new programming is as well with the
If council wants to make the decision now to put funds in there, we did deplete it quite a bit when we did the South Shore boat launch. Remember, there was our contribution. That's where it came from, was reserves. So I don't think there's very much there because at that time we said, this is what we have and we had budgeted to use it. So whatever's coming in for 2025, we could put an estimate in and say, whatever comes in, we're spending to make this year happen. If that's.
Well, could we get the amount first, I guess, would be what is the balance in the reserves? And then we could go from there. but certainly to look at that,
Okay.
it'd be interesting.
Okay, are there any questions about the Parks and Recreation budget?
Actually, the same question I asked everybody else. Out of your whole budget, where it's gonna be tight, so where can you, if we had to come back, where can we eliminate or do some cost savings here, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, the main two areas, I guess, would be either shaving down what we're spending on community events, or subsidizing through taking money out of the Parkland dedication fund.
Okay.
It's not a lot of.
I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah.
That's great. It's just, you know what, we gotta have the conversation, so. Gotta have it.
Yeah, exactly. I feel,
I just wanna know from every department, so then when we have our talks and we can see where we're looking at. To be honest, let's be honest with the residents, right? So,
I'll say. Okay, that concludes.
Includes facilities and recreation, except we'll get into the capital budget.
Yeah.
For facilities and recreation.
We're doing that right now, right?
Yeah. Do you have, when you're running, Greg? Okay.
Okay, so I have a few items for facilities and recreation. The first one, community center / arena. So this one, 120,000 related to roof replacement over the curling rink. So this is associated with the NOHFC application that the curling club made, and they presented to council on it last year. So our contribution for the project for the roof would actually be 105,000, but 120,000 is building in a contingency of about 15%, just in case any issues get found while the roof is being taken apart. So that's based on two separate quotes that we got from roofing companies last year. So it should be relatively in line with what the actual cost would be.
This after the grant or for the grant?
That would be our total contribution after the grant money.
What's the total altogether?
The total project was around 650,000. Okay. There's no other questions about the roof. The next one is a tractor for the Parks and Rec department. So we looked at a used option and it looks like around 25,000 would be a suitable amount to get a used tractor that would serve their purposes. So over the past few years, like increasingly, the park staff are, while doing more maintenance in general, but also doing a lot more finishing work on capital type projects. And some jobs are smaller than what a backhoe is able to do, but bigger than what the hand tools are really kind of suitable for. And sometimes, I mean, Antoine's guys are very busy as well. It's not always possible to get a piece of equipment. And I think that the guys would make really good use of a tractor. It would help them just with doing a lot more landscaping around our parks, a lot more kind of like smaller, smaller projects, just moving earth around, finishing things off. I know this is something that's come up before, but I do think it would be helpful for them.
You're saying tractor, you talking about some of the buckets with the backhoe?
Like a small utility tractor with like the scoop bucket on the front, and then the ability to have other attachments. Like in future years, we could buy like a tiller attachment or like a post hole digger auger or even like a snowblower attachment to do some of the area around the rink, something like that. But right now we're looking at just the base tractor with the bucket to allow them to do kind of landscaping work in the parks, and then we'll go from there.
You have somebody trained to do that, right? Not just anybody can jump on there and wreck it, right? So the person, not the whole staff, or are you gonna have setting people up?
I think we would want multiple people to be able to do it.
You have a tractor in mind? Because I know what they go for, and 25,000 is not gonna give you a lot.
Yeah, well, they don't need a huge one, so this would be like a smaller, just one step up from like your kind of typical residential utility one. And that's why we're looking to use, because I know there's not a ton of money to dedicate to something like this. So I thought that we've purchased used equipment before, and this would be like a compromise, I guess, towards something they could use without totally breaking the bank on it.
They were probably some work on the concept of a park in Astorville, Catherine Drive, would that be equipment that we serve?
I mean, they could use it for any type of like land clearing, smoothing. They're not gonna be able to take down large trees with this, like that would kind of have to be contracted out, but if it's like grading, landscaping, this is definitely something we can do that with.
It's just a maintenance tractor. It's not doing, make commercial work because it's too small for that.
Right, exactly, yeah. Okay, next item, these next two items in the parks are both ISIP related items, and they're both for the Corville Recreation Area across the way. So the new volleyball courts, this would be around $90,000, and that would include an entire reconstruction. So new drainage base, all gravel, new kind of channelized drainage system, new beach sand, new professional rubberized like outer edging, and then new net systems, bleacher, et cetera. It would also shift the location slightly, so it would shift slightly closer to the playground. That would accommodate the skate room, which is the next item, as well as better accommodate the pathways that will need to be built the following year.
Comments here, this is funded by grant money, except for 27% of contribution. The ski room washroom is a carryover from last year, so it's approved last year, we're just bringing it forward as it was completed. Just a couple times.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so the skate room, washroom, yeah, as Jason said, something we spoke about last year. And this would be moving the existing skate room in the Corville Park Hall to a dedicated building with a washroom. And that would go somewhere right towards the like kind of eastern end of the rink.
Another item, Greg, is we should bring up the OPP at this time.
Yeah.
On the capital list, there was a discussion with Craig kind of last week.
Yeah, so we spoke over the last month with Craig McKenzie, the sergeant who looks after the OPP facility next door. And he had two requests that he asked us to bring forward for capital budget to you. The first was an air conditioning system. So they don't have any dedicated air conditioning in the building next door. And they do a lot of training, and they have a lot of officers come through the facility. So it gets very warm in there. They have a couple just window units in the office areas, but that's not suitable for their like training facility area or anything like that. He's waiting for a formal quote on it, but he got an informal quote of about $25,000 for the AC system. And then the second request was a dividing wall between the gym and the stage. So it's a previous school, obviously. So there's the gymnasium area, and then an elevated stage area with the curtain is still the only divider. And his request was to have a framed wall with like sound deafening type insulation and painted and everything to divide the stage area, which is their gym, and the gym area, which is their training area.
Stage area.
To a gym.
Mhm.
Well, all we're bringing forward though is the air conditioning unit. That was kind of the priority.
Yeah.
Bigger item, and I mean, if they are training and it's hot there, it seems like a pretty legit request.
Yeah. It's everything.
Yeah.
So 25,000 for the air conditioning?
Yes.
Okay. And again, we had that additional funds for the OPP and the operating expense compared to the actual.
Yeah, like if you look at it, when we spend some of that money, we're still ahead.
We're still ahead.
Like we're still netting ahead as a profit on that piece.
We could reduce that operating part, yes, by $15,000. Okay, okay. Any further questions? So this is we discussed the bite size approach to, are you comfortable with the air conditioning, $25,000? Reducing the operating for the OPP, which could potentially leave us with $15,000 additional funding either on the capital side.
We talk about the air conditioner now, right?
So just because Councilor Diana this morning had mentioned we should get a list of what they require and approach it like on a, what's the priority? So here we would be putting the air conditioning as a priority and doing it this year. But my point was.
I was thinking of other stuff, but I think that's a shall.
That's a what?
A shall.
Oh, shall, yes, I agree. We all agree, I think.
Talking about some other stuff.
Okay, all right.
Take that out of the picture though.
And so for me as well, it's looking at that operating expense and bringing it back in line with the actual, so that we don't have extra there this.
And kind of I do agree with Councillor Trans that we should set money aside for future consideration. Like, every year, but could be 15,000-20,000. It's in our reserve anyway, so just earmark it for future improvements.
Yeah, I agree.
The last time we did a building condition analysis was 2014. We're quite some time ago now. And in there, it had addressed what needed to be done, like certain things. It's so old now. But I mean, if we went back to that list, lots of it's still not being completed, which we know would be a good starting list, I guess I would say. But it might mean taking that list and going for a tour through there and getting the opinion as well.
There's probably things out there that's gonna be screaming at you, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, question, Councilor Barton.
Thank you. The 90,000, is that our end or is it 27% of the 90,000?
27%.
Okay,
Okay, it's not combined of the 90 and the 125?
So out of the 215,000, we get 157,000 roughly in funding.
That's what I came up with, yeah. Just wondering if that was combined.
Yeah. Everything underneath facilities and recreation basically is gonna be paid for with cash, except the two ice items we're getting 20, our contribution is 27%.
We, Councilor Shannon, wait. No,
I'm just gonna ask it. The tractor. How many hours you figure, Greg, that your team's gonna need it? Weekly, monthly, whatever you want. And I agree, I agree, like they need tools to work with, and it's probably a tool that they probably needed years ago. I just want to, I know it's tough, but it's one of the questions, are we gonna throw good money at bad? 25,000, like I'm serious, Rick, what a tractor's worth too. I just want to make sure that I get you. Get to use one, or how many hours is actually going to be dedicated for a tractor? So maybe we rent one, so we know we got really good equipment. Or we're going to take good money to bad, $25,000. That's just a thought.
Yeah, it's we had a similar thought when we were looking at it. So we didn't want to look at anything that was too old. So when Adam and I were looking at options, we were just browsing different sources online, like either whether it be Kijiji or like other like resellers that sell used items. We didn't look at anything older than 2020, so we tried to keep everything within 5 years and looked at like the major brands like John Deere's, Kubota, and all those type of ones. And you could definitely find ones in that range that were less than 5 years old. They're not going to be the big like full cab sit inside type farm tractors. They'd be more the one sitting on the seat with just the little bar behind, and then an attachment thing on the back and a small bucket on the front. They're really going to be using this primarily in future years with the attachment for things like tilling. But right now, with using the bucket to just spread earth and just finish landscaping jobs, like even things for example, South Shore Boat Launch, when the dry hydrant was installed last year, that was done primarily with the backhoe, and that's very good for moving huge amounts of earth and like kind of prepping a job site, but it's not good at all for finishing. So if anyone was down there, you probably noticed there's mounds of gravel kind of all around. It looked very unfinished after the kind of installation work was done. And that was always supposed to be finished this spring. So it's nothing that was like purposely left unfinished, but that type of work is really difficult to finish with a backhoe. And takes a lot of man hours if you do it by hand. So this was intended to kind of bridge the gap.
There's about 5 different items going to my head. Number one, who's going to run it? 2, who's going to maintain it? Where are you going to house it? You got nothing in there for budget for fuel, oil, repairs, all that stuff. So it's not just 25,000.
Right.
That's the other part of the equation. Depending on it, who you buy it from, there's warranty with it for the first year, but where are you going to park this thing? How are you going to float it around? That you can drive it down the road? Because I don't think you got a float big enough to.
The parks trailer could handle it. Yeah.
You got a 10.
Yeah, they've got the double axle on.
Yeah.
Do they have problems when they need to get equipment from Public Works to help them? Like, are there scheduling issues or,
Sometimes it can be difficult depending on like the time, like if there's a time frame in which it needs to be done, but sometimes it's just more about whether the equipment is even available. The backhoe doesn't always work well for it, or it is more scheduling though. Like one of the guys will be out on the grader, for example, and they can't come over with a piece of equipment. And typically the finishing work always falls in the Parks Department after the major work is done. So for them to have to try to coordinate equipment coming over from Public Works rather than just taking care of it on their own schedule, it's pretty inefficient.
I think there's this Memorial Park in Senate, like some of the members of the Horticultural Club have been bringing their own small tractors and I,
And that's not new.
that's not new, that's been going on, but it's not a good practice necessarily.
We've had when there was the group before the Horticultural Society as well, usage of Larry Brooks equipment for the
Yes.
park. Because we don't have.
And this year we won this the Brian Lynn's equipment,
Right.
and so
I don't,
there is use there, definitely, because
I don't think it's a bad idea. I'm just saying $25,000 is not, there's more than just a tractor. So you're probably looking closer to $40-50, not as. The cheaper, just go rent somebody to come and do the work for you, or do we want to go down that route? Would you like to say you need to maintain it every year? You gotta park it somewhere. I don't think there's any room at the arena to park it inside, is there?
No, probably not in the back.
Traveling back and forth. So I'm just thinking outside the box here for a second, but I mean, we'll look at it.
Yeah, no, it's fair points. Good.
Right.
Okay.
questions. So the suggestion here is before us is that instead of buying, we would rent for another year. And that's my sense of the discussion here a little bit because of the costs maybe aren't complete in $25,000.
If, sorry. I mean,
Go ahead.
exactly, like we just want to know, I'd like to know how many hours. If it's work justifies for having a piece of equipment, fine. And again, throwing good money at bad, and Councillor Champion had 100% good remarks. I just want to throw good money at bad. Like if we actually need a piece of tractor, like $25,000 is not going to get you out of the starting gate here.
So we need a more complete analysis. We maybe do that this year. And we come back with that item next year. Is that a sense that I'm sensing around the table?
Haven't made a decision yet, but
We haven't, okay, so we'll come back.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Give us some more pricing, right? Because you're not gonna need it till May or June anyway, so.
Okay. Okay, on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Greg.
Oh, we're back on track.
We're back on track, yep.
Okay,
Right on track.
thank you, Mr. Curtin.
You could have been 5 minutes faster, but that's okay. Supposed to be back on track. Okay. Now, if we flip pages till we get to 290, category 290 to 290 is community emergency management.
That's a big budget.
Yeah.
It's at the end, I guess.
No, it should be after planning, 800 to.
Oh, yeah.
So first we'll do community emergency management, then operating, obviously, and then we're gonna do the operating budget for the fire department, then we're gonna get into capital for the fire department.
Hello, welcome.
Your worship, Councilor, yeah, everybody. Okay, as you can see, the emergency management budget in front of you, we had a couple of meetings over this. And these are the numbers. They haven't really changed from last year. The top few are sort of carved in stone, the top few lines there. It's relating to my salary. And I'm happy with my salary. I'm not asking for a raise. The bigger item there, the public education. Well, when emergency response kit, we've got $100 down. That's not counting the radios, right, Steph? That's under the fire department budget. So Steph and I have gone through the emergency management kits. There's one based in this building and one in the arena. The $100 is simply like for batteries, for the flashlights, and I doubt we spend $100 on that, but we put it at 100 as a round figure. The meeting and mileage is very low, but it could be, by year end, it may even be lower, specifically the mileage, because the staff can come to the meeting or go to the meeting, out of town meetings that I go to. We can both go. I'd be jumping in with the municipal vehicle. So it wouldn't be costly there. The public education is the big one. Last year, we did the fire ban signs, which are like the real estate signs or voting signs. We got them all made up. We didn't have to use them last year, but it's just a matter of time before we will have to use them. And the fire department assists with placing them when there is a fire ban at all key intersections and locations to further educate the public during a fire ban. This year, we'd like to do 2 road signs. Bancroft has them. And they're like at 2 key intersections in the municipality. And it's for a 72-hour kit. And it's a drive-by sign. So you can look at it as you drive by, you'll digest it. You don't have to stop. You don't have to get out to read it or anything. It's just a picture type thing. And I think it's important just to people look at it every day driving by. It slowly sets in, plants a seed and it slowly sets in. And they're, like I said, big enough that they're going to be like 3 by 3 or something like that. Maybe they're a good size, but they're self-explanatory. They're to the point. As you know, emergency management keeps getting bumped up in importance almost every year. And the government, not only the government, but it's good for our municipality to have sort of something fairly big each year for public education. Steph and I are going to be at the trade show again together like last year. That was very well received. And public education, that was funding for trinkets and stuff like that were emergency based, and pamphlets and handouts. There was a lot of questions. A lot of people came to our booth, as you're aware. Meals, $600. I doubt we'll meet that, but we do have to do a tabletop exercise this year. So there's going to be meals there, and there may or may not be other meetings. We generally host the meetings versus Chisholm or Bonfield simply because we got a top of the line room to do it in. And I think that benefits the municipality as well, because the other municipalities are looking at this and saying, wow, like it's cutting edge here. So that's basically my presentation. Any questions, concerns?
We've also applied for some grant funding for emergency management. And in that is radio communications in here, putting a base station so that it stays in here because our portables don't work very well. Also included in there is some training for chainsaw training for some public works if we can, and the fire department. So if we have power outages.
So Councillor Dan and Councillor Kelly. And if you're not ready, Councillor Dan, we can go to.
I didn't, I apologize, Tim. The 2 signs that you brought up. So is this going to be like some sort of a slogan, or is this something that you're going to capture for this year for a fire season, or is that what
the signs we got last year is strictly if there's a fire ban on. The fire department goes around and places them. The sign for this year is a permanent sign. Yeah, just like your speed, your speed limit signs, you're going to lose so many points. It's going to be set up in 2 places. Antoine's pretty much going to figure out where to put the 2 of them. But it's clearly emergency management. Don't forget your 72-hour kit, whatever it is. We've got a couple online, Kim, that we've looked at.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull one up right now, but let you know.
I know what you mean. I didn't hear that.
Very clear, it's very concise, and you digest it going 60 kilometers an hour driving by. You just look at it like you do signs on the road. I actually caught it in Bancroft when I was traveling, and I went, oh boy, that's really good. Like, that's a great idea.
Yeah, just one thing we've always had a problem with. It's going to be increasing with new people moving in. Is I'd like to have a permanent sign at a couple of our entrances, main entrances saying, if you see a flashing green light behind you, it's an emergency vehicle. I think that's, to me, that's an important. Because it's been, as we all know, it's been a problem for the last 30, 40 years. But we're getting a lot of people coming from cities, moving out to the rural community. They have no idea what a green, flashing green light means. Just a thought.
The comments? Mr. Tucker, we appreciate your expertise, so always on this committee and your leadership, so thank you for that and being here today. I guess that concludes this presentation.
That's I can go, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. You can hang around if you want.
Thank you for your time, everybody. Appreciate it.
Take care, Jim.
Just turn the page, right?
That's right.
Okay.
We're on emergency services now. Thanks for having me here today, this afternoon. Hopefully everybody had a good lunch and everybody's in a good mood.
Oh, Peter.
Keep the claws hidden in the. So we're starting with the operating budget. So I won't go line by line. I'll just touch on some of the bigger items. If something comes up as we go through that you have any questions, please feel free to stop me. So I guess we'll start off with the revenues. Most of these are best guesses based on historical values, I guess. Last year's actuals for permit fees for fire permit fees are actually up quite a bit from where they were before, which is fantastic. So, you know, kind of split the difference a little bit in there and hope we get another good year in there. Civic addresses continue to go up all the time. More homes, more properties go in, the more civic addresses we have to put in. The rest of this stuff we don't usually get on a regular basis, so we don't project any revenues there. So getting into some of the office expenditures, so salaries and wages. So what we've done, substantial increase on this in comparison to actuals last year, but what we've done is combined what we had in the previous fire prevention line further down and added to this one. We're also looking at some department structure changes to incorporate the fire prevention position into another position. Taking the wages from fire prevention that was already allocated, as well as some of the other officer positions, kind of wrapping it all up into one. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but I think we're pretty close to what was already previously budgeted. I don't think there's any real increases.
This is the perfect time for me to have a discussion.
Okay.
We've had discussions at the fire committee level, couple, 3-4 discussions probably at this point. For 2024, council had approved going ahead with a bylaw enforcement / fire prevention officer position full-time for the two combined positions. We had hired somebody, that person had left the organization, so then we re-advertised the position. We got a new person. They left the organization to go to another position. And then we advertised the position a third time, all within basically a 1-year period. We've not hired for that position. What we've been hearing in terms of it through an exit interview, as well as new candidates that applied for the position, was it's not a good fit to have the two positions combined, is one thing that we've heard. When it comes to it, I think the salary is bang on for a bylaw enforcement position where they're placed in the grid. The problem we're having on the fire side is when you start looking at the qualifications for somebody that's qualified for fire prevention and the NFPA courses, the salary is not there. So what we're being told is the job's geared to someone coming right out of school or somebody who's retired that wants to take the job and its salary is not an issue, basically, right? So that's something we've heard a few times. When we put it out the third time, so the first time we put it out, we had people that were fire chiefs, highly overqualified for the position. The third time we did it, there was nobody qualified on the fire except for one person had about 7 years experience as a volunteer firefighter in the department. Highly qualified on the bylaw side. And like I said, the salary, they said fits for somebody in bylaw, but when you're starting to combine the position, we're not getting the candidates, I guess, for it. We've juggled this for quite some time since, Daniel, I mean, everyone's aware Daniel was with us and left to go for a full-time position. What we've done in the budget this year is we know we need somebody, for bylaw. I don't think, the pitch was made to council last year and actually was in 2023. And it said, go ahead in 2024 for it. So we need somebody in bylaw. My issue is I'm not sure we've got 35 hours a week of bylaw. We might have 25 to 30. I don't like having a position where there's extra capacity, I guess, right? In saying that though, I know there's been discussion around the table about older bylaws and redoing some of our bylaws and putting fines to them. And, you know, we've just attended a conference where if some of us attended the POA one, they spoke about an AMPS program, which is fines that 100% is kept at the municipal level. That's a completely different program that requires policies, bylaws around it. In saying all of that, my pitch in the budget this year is to hire somebody full-time bylaw with the idea that they're going to assist with cleaning up some of those old bylaws, attaching fines. I've discussed with Greg as well, the shift of, right now, anybody comes in for anything short-term rentals related, they have to deal with Greg. Issuing a license, Greg, everything, there's a lot on Greg's plate. The thoughts is do we now try to take as much permit licensing away from Greg, shift it onto the bylaw person, because there's someone that's going to go out there and they're going to try to enforce a bylaw. And then if they catch somebody that doesn't have a license, they can say, well, I'll work with you. We'll get a license. They're part of, inspecting of the property and that. So I think there's a way to give more work to the person in bylaw so that we have somebody in bylaw, because we're lacking. I've been honest with council about that. There is also an opportunity that maybe we share them to one municipality to try to recoup some of the salary costs, but also have it as a 35-hour-a-week job. That's the bylaw side. And I don't think we can find somebody part-time bylaw. We had really, really good candidates on the bylaw side the third time around. The issue was one of them didn't accept the job. We made an offer. They didn't accept it because it's a combined position. They seem to speak to there being risks of wearing multiple hats when they go on scene and that. So I don't want to get too much into it, but we had really good candidates, made an offer, and the person at the last minute said, I won't be accepting the position. So, on the fire prevention side, we've talked at committee level several times about this leading up to about a week ago. The thoughts were, I guess on the committee level, our thoughts were, can we do fire prevention internally with volunteers that we already have, but compensate them for it? The discussion led to, we have 2 battalion chiefs. Do we go back to having a deputy fire chief / fire prevention that's part-time? The talk right now is about 21 hours a week. Taking the battalion chief's remuneration and putting it towards that one position, but also taking some of the money we had set aside for fire prevention and adding it to that, but solving it internally with somebody we've already got on the department is the talks. The reason for that is we know the budget we're facing right now, but also I don't think we need a full-time fire chief, fire prevention, although we need somebody on bylaw and we're not going to find them part-time, but we need full-time. Do we need full-time? No, I need about maybe 25, 30 hours, but I'm not gonna be able to hire somebody for that. So I think we can fill bylaw and solve it on its own. And then fire prevention, we start off with 21 hours is 3 days, which includes Thursday evening training. So it's really 2.5 days in the office. That's kind of where we're at with the position right now. And that's what's in this budget sheet. So when you're looking at the salaries, the increase, it's because when we get to fire prevention later, the costs drop that were budgeted last year because they've been brought in under the department level. A battalion chief's cost, just to let you know, we're about $10,000 in cost per year for battalion chiefs. That money would be shifted to this position and we'd be taking some from fire prevention. So our budget, if you look at it, is slightly higher because we're keeping bylaw full-time and adding to fire prevention. But as we go through it, that's the understanding of how it's been budgeted so far.
Councillor Champagne?
I basically agree with what you're saying, Jason. Should be a full-time person. Should be somebody that's gonna work into a municipality part-time. They'll stay for so long and leave and start the whole process all over again. And we've been bitten, what, 3 times now? I think it's time to get one person, the right person in place. We trust her for that. But we need that, not part-time. And as far as the fire,
We discussed right now, you're saying bylaw.
Saying the same thing.
We discussed bylaw. Okay. Yeah, so you're saying the same thing. And you're saying the same, everyone agrees with this direction on bylaw enforcement? Yeah. Okay. This person that was so great with that person. Anyway, there's people out there, right, that you've met that you think could be.
There were 2 really highly qualified people for bylaw. One I'm not overly as comfortable with because they're not from the area. The first candidate is closer to our area and there might still be an opportunity there.
the Canadian.
Okay, so we're comfortable with that direction.
It's because when Steph said there's high increases and we're making changes, I thought there's been a lot of discussion around it and we've not come to council yet. And this was the opportunity. I said budget is the opportunity to have a discussion about it.
Yes.
We need to budget for it before we can, before we really
Yes.
final decisions.
Yeah. Now I will say as well on the job side of things for fire prevention, we are looking at job description at the committee level. What duties that may involves, right? Because it is part-time. Once we've got that job description set, then we're able to offer it internally to say, anybody, is there any internal hires? Problem is if there's no internal hire, I'm not sure there's an external hire for a part-time job like that without starting to share with other municipalities, right? So
Yeah, that or it's gonna, we have enough people, qualified people, that has enough knowledge and skills and ability to actually take a portion of the position and alleviate some of the duties from the chief, right? So we have, as you know, we got quite a few guys, so it's for the time being, we have to divvy everything up to make sure that, you know, everything's, municipality assets are all looked after and what that person or the FBO has to do, right? So, yeah, it's tough. It's, you know, it's tough to find that person because that person that, to everybody to be aware, and not sure if you're aware, look, there's a lot of courses. There is a lot of education to have a person to be that person and fulfill that duty for whether it's a city or a municipality. They're all the same. Everybody's in the same classroom. So taking the same courses, it's pretty tough.
So we're going on a step at a time basis.
yeah, like I'll tell council, the hardest part is because we don't want to come to council and say we need full-time bylaw, full-time FPO. We're trying to crunch as much as we can and people wear multiple hats like we do now, some of us, right? Other places, they'd probably go to a council and say, no, this is what a full-time. We're trying to make it work with what we have or the money we have. So it's not a big effect, right, on the taxpayer in a way that we're not saying it's a full-time job and it's not full-time work. We're just trying as best as we can to split it up. And that's what 2024 was trying to make it work. We've tried with that way. Please carry on. Oh,
I guess, do any of the other municipalities have a fire prevention?
Some do.
like neighboring in terms.
Yeah, like
full-time?
Calendar or Bonfield, like where we want to have somebody, a bylaw, and then take, maybe loan them out to another
Yeah.
municipality. Is there somebody we could?
So I'll give you an example on Bonfield's got a building official. That's also bylaw. And they share that person out to Chisholm for bylaw.
Okay.
They've tried to make it work, right? And they're making it work, I guess, where before Chisholm had somebody, we were sharing bylaw, but they weren't a full employee. Everyone in the areas has a problem with bylaw.
Right.
They've had it, the Chisholm's had it, Calendar did. Calendar's now got somebody there who's doing bylaw for them. It seems to be because no one's got a full-time. It's the tough one, right? I'll be honest, I made the call out to Chisholm when we were thinking of this and I said, is there any way of sharing? You shared with us before. I'd like to be able to share. They said, well, we're getting shared services from Bonfield. Okay, right? So because what happened is when they heard we were advertising for it, they came to us right away. Said, yeah, but we're combining with an FPO. We don't have the capacity now to do fire prevention and bylaw and share bylaw. But I went back to them because I thought maybe they don't have a fix and we'll try to help. They have a fix, right? So when you look at fire prevention on the calendar side of it, and nobody in our area except City of North Bay has full-time fire prevention on their own. It's multiple hats. Calendar's got 2 deputy fire chiefs, part-time. Yep, both of them.
Well, they're not part-time, they're just,
They're the deputy chiefs that calendar has.
Yeah.
They've taken, just like similar to us, they had 1. They broke it to 2 because they don't have a person to commit.
Yeah.
So they're paid. They're volunteers there, but
Yeah.
they're
compensated for that.
Rent and they split duties. So it's,
one does prevention.
yeah, exactly. So it's split up that way.
I did reach out to some of our neighbors as well with regard to sharing services, and there is interest there. It's just difficult to.
Like I could say like the bylaw officer in the in our municipality right now, a bylaw officer that we hire right now, I'll tell you right now, for the first little bit, absolutely, he'll be busy. Like there's full-time work there.
Mine was years out. But I mean, I guess I shouldn't, sometimes you gotta plan for the year or 2 and see, roll with it when it comes, right? So.
Councillor Kelly?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with the direction the fire department's taking. It's continuing to evolve. To answer your question, this also fits in with the training center that we're about to build as far as the fire department goes. In which case, we are generally acknowledged, our fire department is generally acknowledged as one of the leaders, if not the leader, in the area. So I can see the fire prevention officer, even on a part-time basis, being able to utilize the new facility to educate other people. There again, to be a revenue source. So it would be multi-use and multi-hats.
Yeah.
But in fairness to the chief and yourself, Steve, our fire department is evolving, and I think in a very positive way.
It's
It's good for the municipality and it's good for the long-term planning.
Not to,
Congratulations.
not to overstep and talk here, but it's tough because we're at the bubble here, which way we're going.
Yes.
And
We're gonna start somewhere.
we're gonna start somewhere and we're just not there, but we're close to there. It's, you know what I mean? Like
I see the building.
everything comes at a cost too, right? But
Building on the capital expenses, so.
yeah, so that's why we're trying to, alleviate some, or not alleviate, but to try and be cost effective on what we're doing here and what, you know what I mean, who we're gonna pay here to do jobs that our municipality actually required and needs to be done.
And as you know, we have a lot of people with a lot of years' experience on the fire department, so we're utilizing human resources as well as money well spent, so
Yeah.
it's all good.
And Mr. Tracy just confirmed that we're continuing our application for training center for the fire department.
Yes.
That continues to work.
Some of this too with staffing, what it is, we're not a small municipality anymore. 5,000 is not small.
Exactly.
Look at the municipalities in Ontario. There are quite a few that are 1,000, 2,000, like 5,000, you're getting to medium, although it doesn't sound like it.
There you are.
You're in that next,
But the problem is you're in that bubble of
Yes.
full-time staff to part-time staff.
yeah,
The different,
Yes.
you know what I mean? So that's,
It's the cost,
yeah,
because our department is now.
tough.
That's all good.
Okay. Good with that? One item. It's an important one.
And you thought we were back on track. Okay, so the next few lines on here, just go with the salaries. So we won't worry too much about that. The next bigger one, uniform and safety clothing. So we hired on 9 new recruits this year. We're gonna be looking at 9 new uniforms. And then we're gonna need investing for their uniforms as well and fitting and alterations and all that fun stuff. So it's pretty close to where it was before anyhow. Small increase on there. Computer software has increased over the years. Our Fire Pro software costs have gone up a little bit, but we've also invested in a second license so that we can operate it more than one person at a time. As there's a lot of stuff going in there. And in any given day. Computer hardware, again, we purchased tablets last year. They caught on really, really well and are being utilized a lot. So we're looking to expand on that, purchase some more tablets for the trucks this year. Move more towards electronic documentation for our maintenance nights and whatnot. So I think that's something that's working really well for us. Marketing and promotions gone down this year. Last year we had a lot of people with a lot of years experience, 5, 10, 15 years words and whatnot. So it was, there's only 3 of them this year, so a little bit less cost there. Postage, we didn't use any last year. We had budgeted for a mail out for laneways, maintaining your laneways. So we didn't get that out last year, so we're gonna attempt to get that out again this year. And going down the rest of the list on here, there's not much, any changes. Dispatching fees was a new one last year. Slight increases on that annually. Move on to training. Not much change in training. There may be some cost savings in conference and courses. I did budget, I think it was 6,000 for some hazmat training. I think we've pretty much got it settled now. We're going to be doing some in-house training. We're doing off-campus course through the college, so they're sending the instructors down, which means we don't have to pay for instructors anymore. So there's going to be savings there of around $4,000 or $5,000 to have that done here. So I did leave that cost in the budget as it's still kind of, it's there but not there, but so there could end up being some savings in there.
Yeah.
That's right.
There'll still be some costs there, yeah. But
Oh, there's still going to be some costs. Yeah, we'll have meals and snacks and all that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, there'll be some savings in there, hopefully. We also have the mobile live fire training unit coming this year. We were selected for that. So there's going to be minimal costs as well for that, for meals and whatnot. That's budgeted under the meals section of the training. But the rest of training pretty much stayed close to the same. If there's no questions there. We'll move on to firefighting. So we got some grant funding, the fire protection grant, 16,000. So that's put towards some PPE, so gloves, hoods, and helmet liners. So that's in the protective clothing line. That's kind of a in and out. I did just find out last week, we also got some grant funding from the Fire Marshal Public Safety Council for, I think it was around $900 for some training materials. So might be able to offset some of the tablet costs with that. So we were looking at electronic training, so. So yeah, going down a protective clothing. So that 16,000 was included in their protective clothing. Helmets, or not helmets, gloves, hoods, and helmet liners. And then of course we need regular maintenance of our regular upkeep of our PPE. So our stuff will only last 10 years. So we have to try to stay on top of that so we're not stuck in behind. And again, with 9 new recruits, we've got a little bit of extra stuff that we got to purchase this year. We're good for suits, but we need some helmets and boots. So memberships, kind of an anomaly in the numbers there from what we budgeted for. That incorporated the gym memberships we had talked about last year.
Do they use them? They use them?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I hear. There's a few of them anyways. I probably have a better number.
Averaging 4 or 5 a year. Yep.
So that's good.
One question.
Sure.
The point system, is that enough?
Nope.
No, I'm serious. Okay.
It goes up 3% a year is what we budgeted for several years.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
yeah, we put that in
Yep. No, that's,
years ago, the
Yep.
3%,
it was a regular, I just wondered,
just a
are
quote.
we keeping,
I'm trying to think point values this year. I want to say we're around $16 or $18 a point.
okay.
So
We used to be below minimum wage.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
$5.10.
Yes.
For a point.
The only difference sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that like also is like,
Yes.
maybe explain the gas cards. So we offset some of the,
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was in group benefits. So we've also added $100 gas cards on an annual basis for all members.
Okay.
That started last year, though. We discussed it.
That's good. No, I just want to make sure we're keeping abreast of the.
trying to look after the guys and girls as best as can and keep it at a high level and.
Looking at all different avenues to try to
Good. No.
add some stuff in there without monetary value, because it's tough, right? We
Whatever
can't afford it.
whatever you're doing, it's working because look at the recruits you're picking up.
Yeah,
And we're not losing people.
yeah,
Stage related, so.
yeah.
At the end of this year, we'll see the point value because, we've added what, 9 new recruits in January? So you start taking that pool of money and divvying it out and there's 9 more people. We'll see what the point value is.
Gotta make an adjustment.
Differences. You add those 9 recruits, but it doesn't mean there's 9 extra people showing up to a call. Right? So we're not quite sure where it's gonna pan out, but
Yeah.
at the end of this year, but the point value itself has been going up over the years.
Oh, that's good. Well, there's-
And then as training goes up, you get a point for every hour that you're in training, and that adds every year as well, right? You start doing like this hazmat training, just for example, is 2 weekends, 4 days, 8-hour days.
Yeah.
So
no, as long as we're keeping it.
there's 32 points per person there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Get on to the hall maintenance.
You're missing fire prevention?
208.
Uh,
206 fire prevention.
yeah, so fire prevention, as we discussed, salaries and wages, we moved from this line up to the general salaries line. Everything else pretty much stayed pretty status quo in there. Excuse me, uniforms and safety clothing, we left it in at 500. Depending on where we end up with that position, there may be some additional uniforms required in there. Training supplies, so we purchase a spring kit and a fall kit for fire prevention on an annual basis. So just trying to bring that up. We give some of it away at our trade show that we do in May, and then again at the event that we hold in October at our open house. And then some training for that as well. May or may not be that money, depending on where we go and the person that's in that position.
Just add to that also. We have the schools. So the schools figure out which grade it is, but they come in through the halls. So there's stuff to give away there too. So
Yeah.
that's part of.
We've always got stuff on hand for, anything that comes up like that. Sometimes we get more from the school, sometimes we get less. And then advertising, again, some stuff in there for our open house, as well as some spackling for the trucks. Incorporated some last year. Continue to put some fire prevention messages on. Okay, so move on to the Corbeil Fire Hall. Not much has really changed in here. Aside from insurance premiums,
Yes.
which seems to be the story across the board.
Budget's up about $400 over last year is what's projected.
Same thing with the Astorville Fire Hall.
Insurance is quite a bit higher at the hallway.
Well, the thing is, they're in there by themselves now, right? Used to, the office was in there, right? The hall, we're here.
Astorville.
Festival.
Okay, I thought, Astorville, okay, well, that's right. I thought we were still on Corbeil here.
Should Astorville.
Yeah,
Brent Astorville?
5,000.
Corbeil one is 54.79 too.
What's up 5,000?
Insurance.
Well, no, the actuals for 2024 are 3897.
Okay, we're on Astroville, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the actual is 2,800. Now we're looking at 3,300. So it's basically $5,000 more.
I'm not seeing 3,300.
Well,
12,000 to 15,000 from actual to.
Both.
That's real fire hall?
Masterville,
Yep.
insurance.
12, oh, insurance, okay.
Yeah, insurance, 45.59.
Now you're over 10 grand for the two halls.
Oh, you're adding them all together.
No, I'm just saying, the actual is 33,800.
No, $3,897.
I'm looking at insurance premium.
For Asheville?
1,897.
Yeah, 39.87.
What am I looking at, Terry? Am I on the wrong page or what?
No, here are the totals.
So the 29,
Go up there.
Oh, sorry. I'm at the Astro Fire Hall
Yep,
expenditures.
yep.
That's up there.
38.97.
Right there. Your
I'm looking right here.
numbers are different from mine. Mine's 3897 right
I'm looking
there.
right here.
3897, right there.
But I'm right here, insurance premium.
Yeah, that's the vehicles.
Oh, okay, well, sorry, I'm still $5,000 more. Okay,
that's 5,000 for sure.
sorry,
Yeah, insurance, vehicle insurance is up quick.
sorry,
And I'll see.
still $5,000 more.
My story's back then.
When you look at Council Champagne, like look at 2023 for the vehicles, 21,000 went to 28,000. It went from 12 to 21 to 28. Last year, we budgeted just say 24,775 based on an estimate. That was above the 21,000 and I was still under on an estimate for that. It's right.
Getting insane.
Oh, it is.
So remember I said the 1 year we had double the premiums on just the, like this is as like on the vehicles themselves, right? And I was talking the pumpers, the big trucks, not like a pickup truck, fire or rescue. It's the 4 whatever, the tankers, pumpers, double. on those ones. So
Cost of individual vehicles has increased exponentially as well. So
and everything's on
they're
replacement.
looking at replacement costs.
Everything's on replacement, yeah.
Yeah.
Overall, though, the fire department, I mean, let's got into vehicles, but overall, we're up about 12, a little under $12,000 total there, right?
Yeah, not much change in the vehicles as well.
Yeah, $11,094 is the total with emergency management.
So for me, the only area I saw that was, first I would say a cut. And it comes back to your discussions, but I certainly on the training side, when it was back to just training and education, the 20,000, we went from 11,000 to 20,000. And you did highlight the fact that there's new information that's come in that potentially would indicate that we could cut the 20,000 down to, maybe I got a sense of, back to right here.
Specifically, that was that.
Yeah, correct. Specifically on the conference, and given the discussion that was held between yourselves. And so that, if there's an opportunity there to trim that down now that we have actual information, that would be great.
Yeah.
I mean, $5,000, there would make a difference. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So if you go back to, I think it's item 30.
You say 70,000 for conferences?
Yeah.
That line.
That line there. Yeah.
Went from 11 to.
I was looking, okay, you're
There's a lot of numbers, so I understand.
As the chief mentioned,
Yeah.
current information on costing, so that could mean a reduction there of 17 to maybe 12 or something like that. That would be wonderful. That's 5,000.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things, right? Like it's like
We didn't know when you did this, so.
well, there's some money budgeted last year for another officer course that you send somebody away for a week, it's $3,500.
Yeah.
So they're enrolled in a course and weren't able to go. So that's why some of that money was spent. There was also money allocated last year for hazmat training, which didn't end up working out last year. A lot of back and forth with the college, try to get things figured out. So that's why the cost from last year was only just over 10,000 compared to what we budgeted for. So now we're kind of right back to where we were, trying to do the same thing as we did last year. And we've also, so we're going to the Northeastern Fire Education Conference in Huntsville this
Yes,
year.
that's true.
And also, so they started offering training courses there. So I was able to incorporate two of our officers to get into a course over there. So by doing that, we saved, I think, $3,000 as opposed to sending them somewhere else for the year for the same courses. So
Yes.
there were some cost savings there as well.
Thank you for that. Wait.
And follow up on that, more and more in the last 15 years, training is mandated. And the first question when there's something goes sideways is, what training have you had? And is it relevant and is it up to date? So and I'm going back 20 years ago, it was a thought, oh, you can have this training, that, you're volunteers, just go and do what you can do. Now there's standards.
Yes.
And their standards are in place and they're written standards, and as we all know, the qualifications have increased. So what we're trying to do, I think what we're doing is just trying to stay up to date. And it's actually for the benefit of all the taxpayers, because it gets down to liabilities.
So we do what's essential, and when there's an opportunity to save, as was mentioned, go for that. Thank you. As for just my own observation.
That's great.
There being no further questions, we move on, and it's a break, 2-minute break now.
Sure. I'm gonna ask you.
We should do that. Ed, go ahead.
You have to save where we save. We had to come back and say, chief, where can you tighten your belt up a little bit here?
Yeah,
Please come up with something.
It's a tight one. We went through many times trying to save some money for some other stuff that we need to do.
Yeah.
I mean, we can cut some of the equipment that looking to purchase this year. There's not very much there. I'm hoping the training's gonna go through. So there's, you know, $4,000 or $5,000 in the hazmat training that we can hopefully save there. And maybe some of the advertising. Cut back on some of the promotional stuff for prevention.
Where are we sitting with Fire Marquee right now then?
Yeah, good question.
We used everything last.
I was gonna ask you the tough question, so.
We used everything last year for the renovations to put towards the renovation.
Okay.
So we're sitting empty now. We do have a couple of bills in.
Don't know what that's gonna come out.
Our bills are irrelevant, because we get whatever the insurance decides we're gonna get. So, I mean, bills total right now, I think around $25,000. But if the insurance says, well, we only pay out 5,000, then we get out of it.
I'll have to go back. We'll have a chat on that. I think there's something different on that. Okay. So that's where your savings are, is equipment
Yeah, some of the equipment, and some of the promotional stuff for prevention.
The training.
and some of the training.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that we're gonna get some savings there. So I think we're gonna be in pretty good shape in that sense, so. It's tight.
Hey,
We work back and forth to try to save as much as we can
Yeah.
to try to implement some stuff and. You know, everybody's gotta do their part, right? So.
that's why I asked, and then I'm not the only person I've asked. So there's a lot of conversations, just to throw, you deal with the public out here just as much as we do. There's a lot of people asking about increases on taxes, because a lot of people are actually really worried in our municipality.
Yeah. CAO is pretty hard on us to get started anyways.
We're into capital for the fire department.
Yeah. Do you have a copy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll start off at the first item on the capital list, so bunker suits. So as per every year, we try to get 5 suits to remain current with our suits. They only last 10 years, so I think with 5 suits, we'll still be good, even if we do have to replace 30 of them, if we maintain our numbers at 30, 31 right now, actually. I think we're still in good shape there. Costs haven't gone up dramatically on it. I think they're 5 or 10%, so not too bad there. Dry hydrants, again, another annual expense that we keep putting in there. So we completed the one dry hydrant last year. We also purchased all the materials for the next 2 dry hydrants that goes on, one on Big Moose, and one on McPherson at the boat launch. So we already have all the materials, being the pipe. And we also have all the permits that are required for it.
So the 20,000 includes all the pipe in that, or is that over?
So the 20,000 this year, when we do the one on Big Moose, we're going out around 60 feet from the shoreline. So we don't have any equipment within the municipality to be able to get out that far without going into the water. So we need to rent a excavator with a long boom on it. So trying to work with companies so that we can time it right, so we're not paying ridiculous amounts of money for transportation. We got to truck it in and then we got to use it and then truck it back to wherever it is. So hopefully it's close by to save some money there. But preliminary costs, we're looking at, you know, $8,000 to $10,000 to rent that for a couple of days to get that one project done. So, and then McPherson is, we're still in talks with Antoine and Greg on exactly how it's gonna play out there, because there's some renovations, I guess, to be done at the boat launch there as well. So trying to coordinate all that so we don't have to do the work twice or move it afterwards. So there's a little bit of unknown in that one, but hopefully timelines will work out this year that we can get both of them done this year and then.
Well, that's a good point you raised. I mean, it's in regards to McPherson, given the work that has to be done and it's still a ways away, could it be that the dry hydrant, I mean, we're committed to doing that, but could it be better for next year, given the planning work that is required with
It absolutely could, depending on timelines and how it goes and what they're looking at doing over there. The permit's only good until the end of this year.
Oh.
So we'd have to reapply for another permit. So a little bit of cost there. They're not crazy expensive for the permits, but another process. So if we can incorporate it in this year, it'd be great. But again, it depends on the work that's going to be done there, I guess, so.
right. And my sense is that we're not ready for that work from that perspective this year.
No, I don't.
I don't think so.
No.
So,
But as long as we're staying away from whatever they're gonna do.
yes,
Whatever the plan is.
yeah, so that's like
So we don't want to put our dry hydrant here and then they decide, well, we want to put another boat ramp right there.
yes,
Then we have to take it out.
yeah, so there's a discussion there that needs to be had. Okay.
Yeah, so.
Touch on coveralls?
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
What's that, sorry?
Oh, all good.
Were you okay with that quantity?
So the coveralls for wildland fighting. Unfortunately, they're just not normal coveralls. They got to stock coveralls, threads. So nobody gets hurt.
Yeah.
That's what it cost.
Yeah.
Those coveralls are.
More than normal. Makes sense.
Yeah, so that 15,000 is to replace all 30 sets all at the same time.
$500 a pair.
Yeah. So well, jump to the fire hall expenses and the pumper, I guess, well, not really wrapped into one, but the fire hall expenses incorporates the purchase of the land and some of the prep and whatnot that needs to be done. I think that's already been brought up through council, right? Everyone's aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
So, and then the new pumper truck for $750. So we brought that up last year and the year before. It's getting crunch time, costs are going up.
One question, is that a pumper tanker or just a pumper?
Pumper.
Okay, so you're gonna replace one of the pumper tankers?
So we're replacing the old pumper from Astorville. So we're gonna make, we're gonna lessen the water capacity of the truck so that we can increase the amount of storage space that we have.
Okay.
So we can, well, looking at the proposal that I have to replace trucks moving forward. There's another tanker in there as well, so we would have two more tankers. And if we do need the extra water, we can always call on our neighbors to bring a tanker as well, right?
One question, what's the year of the Astronaut truck? What,
2007.
2010? So it's 15 years old.
2007?
No.
2007.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2007?
Yeah.
Pardon me. Okay.
Yeah.
Cute.
So, and we're about 2 years to get the new truck.
Yep.
So order it now.
Fort Garry, if you're gonna spec a truck out there, you're 2 years. You got Metal Fab that's out in the East Coast.
Right.
You got Dependable. Dependables has trucks in their yard right now for sale, but they're not custom trucks. They're different than what firefighting that currently that the fire department does. So to outfit those trucks, you gotta put in more,
You have to renovate them.
you gotta fix them up for the way we do our business.
Yeah.
Compared to say the
They're
other,
designed for a city, right?
yeah,
That's
that's what it comes down to. So it's,
Yep.
that's why you're looking at if we're gonna, if we're looking at it, well, then we gotta think ahead and plan for it ahead
A
of.
customized truck for our needs.
Yeah. When we say customized, we're not like,
Yeah,
full out. This is the color we want, and this is
more,
what we like.
it's more for the plumbing of part of it.
Yeah, and how we operate and use and efficiency and right?
Okay.
So get this straight, basically, truck this year, but if we order the truck, we want it for 2 years from now, we should order it now. We'll have to pay for it for 2 years.
So there's different ways of purchasing the trucks. And one of the recommendations would be to, if we purchase the truck this year, to purchase the cabin chassis right now. Some manufacturers do that, some don't. And one of the reasons for that is the new diesel engines that are coming in. I was told last year and I was told again this year, it's gonna add another $90,000 to the truck right off the hop because of the emissions that's coming into it. So if we purchase a truck this year, we purchase a cabin chassis this year, we're gonna save that 90,000 that's gonna be rolled into the truck starting next year and moving forward. So I don't think we're gonna avoid any of the tariffs with any of this stuff, so I don't really know if that's should be a reason why we rush anything into it, but the truck itself at least, yeah.
Well, it's going back to my question earlier. You get something when you order it now, they carry the price for the 2 years. Even though the tariffs come in, will they still carry the price? That's a tough one.
Yeah, I don't know what the manufacturers are gonna do. When that started a few years back, it wasn't, and then you were able to do it where they would honor the price. What they're gonna do in the next 3 or 6 months, I couldn't honestly tell you.
Could you maybe
But
make that call or make that conversation and get back?
yes,
Obviously, we're not gonna make a decision today, yeah or nay, but if that is a sticking point and it would save us money, then I just think we should look at it.
I agree.
Yeah,
Makes
absolutely.
sense. Yep.
And that's, we've talked about that and that was kind of our game plan. So it's.
So what are we
But I
looking
think
at
it needs a
from a
little deeper discussion too, right?
So what are we looking at from a budget perspective this year, Bill?
Well, I would say take it out of here for now, and if you're gonna use, you're gonna take out a reserve anyway. You don't have to pay it for the full price up front, right, Jason?
But Jason, that was-
Yeah, so the only thing is, yeah. The 750 that's in budget right now, to fund that 750 was a loan.
Yeah,
We don't buy it, we don't have a loan. It doesn't help us on the tax rate this year.
exactly.
Okay, right, so that's number one. Number two, the fire chief had prepared this as a bit of a long-term plan on how to fund future equipment purchases, because, when we look at things right now, yes, there's public works equipment, it's not this costly. We don't have any other big equipment purchases for buildings or anything that's this costly. So this was a way for him to come forward to council to say, on a go forward, if we fund reserves, we'll get to a point one day where we can have enough that we're using cash to buy equipment versus borrowing. The kicker with it all, the first purchase has to be a loan because we don't have anything to start with. Earlier this morning, I mentioned funding a reserve of 1% for fire trucks, 69,000, right? That's the first line on this page. The idea with the fire chief's plan, and I'll let you go through and explain, Steph, is that we put, and let's pretend it's 70 instead of 69, it's easier. We put 70 this year. Next year, we add 70 to 70. The year after, we add 70 to 140. You keep going, where eventually after the fourth or fifth year, we're at 225,000 a year being added to reserves just to cover about $3.6 million in fire equipment that's needed over the next how many years? So I'll let Steph, if there's more to it, Steph. I like the work that's been done because it does show council what year our current equipment is.
The only downfall, if I may, is that's the prices for this year. Price for next year and the year after. I'm going back to this building. When we first building, we're looking at 1.4 million.
Yeah.
So prolong it, then it gets worse.
Yeah. So there is no inflationary figures built into this?
Yeah, some of these are our best guesses. So for example, we replaced the bumper over here in Corbyville. It's gonna be the same truck as the one we're looking at for this year. This year we budgeted 750. So when that comes to the 800 and kind of hope for the best. If we're putting away, once we get it past year 5, and we're putting away 225 on an annual basis, that gets us every 4 years. That'll give us 900,000 every 4 years to purchase a truck or a large piece of capital expenditure. So if you look at the last page, so by the time, say you just look at say 2033, by the time we're replacing our pump 5 over here, it's going to cost us $1 million to replace that with our SCBA's that year. But at the end of that year, actually that was a bad year because we're in the hole that year. But by the time you get to the last year, we've started building a balance and we've got a little bit over 600,000 in excess after we've made those purchases. So there is a little bit of buffer in there to compensate for the added costs that may or may not happen. We can't. You know, I've got this up to 2045. Who knows what's going to happen? Yeah, 20 years, right?
Question. The 2007. At what part does that truck business be certifiable anymore? I'm not talking about mechanically, but I mean as far as fire.
So it all comes down to insurance grading.
Yeah.
So once we start using trucks that are over 20 years old, we can have them recertified and retested on an annual basis to maintain our insurance grading. But once they get past 20 years, the insurance grading for the residents goes up. So at what cost is that? I couldn't tell you. Every insurance company is slightly different. So when I did this mock-up, I compared replacing a truck at the 20-year mark in comparison to replacing the truck at a 25-year mark. You were looking at, I think it was $11,000 difference that you had to add to the budget on an annual basis for the first 5 years to be able to make up that difference, replace a truck every 5 years as opposed to every 4 years. So $11,000 isn't a whole lot of money to be able to say, you know, well, now, if we do it every 20 years, we don't have to worry about having it recertified. We don't have to worry about insurance grades going up. We don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So there's a lot of extra things that goes into keeping the truck for, say, 25 years. I don't believe the cost savings is really worth it. You know, residents are probably going to end up paying more in insurance than what the taxes are going to pay.
I think even if you go at 70, works. It's not the truck. Has to be go through these hoops to be recertified, and then the insurance premium will take a hit on.
Would we continue to use both pumpers? Is that so? Is that you and would we continue to use our existing?
Yes, until the other one.
Get it
And if
recertified.
I sell the other one,
Yeah, we sell it. So that's the other thing is, you know, the faster we replace the trucks, the more money they're worth when we sell them, right?
Okay, so the intention is not for us to recertify that truck.
No.
It's to sell it off.
Yeah, none of this takes into account any kind of salvage value on our old equipment. You know, there's some municipalities that might say, hey, that's still in good shape. We'll buy it from you, although it's older than 20 years, because they may not have the funds to keep replacing at 20 years and they might extend it 25, 30. So some of these will have good salvage value as well. That's point one. Number two, the 1% at 69,000. You know, Councilor Champagne mentioned, like, we discussed, there's no inflation on any increase time. If we always add 1%, well, really, if we were past this year's budget, 1% is about, I think it's 72,000. Next year might be 75, then it's, so if we do it always 1% of the current 1%, that does build in a bit of some inflationary factor there.
I agree with that.
It's the same thing if you take one of our plow trucks. If you do the same idea, the same. Same work, then we're, you know what I mean, eventually we're gonna play catch up where, you know, the truck's gonna be free, not free, but
Money in the bank.
we have the money in the bank to buy it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just good financial planning, which has always been.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And we
essential.
tackle the most expensive stuff, because if we do that for everything, well, now this year we'd be adding 5% just.
Yeah.
We're trying to chew off the worst case scenario right now of, and
Well, if you do this for 4 or 5 years, then we're okay with that. And then you don't have to stop it. You can continue it. And it won't take long to fund some of the other, you know, plow trucks and the pickup trucks. They're not worth $800,000-$900,000, right?
But can I look at the other, like the 2007, when we bought it, what did we pay for it? Does anyone remember?
260,000.
300,000.
yeah,
$500,000 more.
imagine.
And we could probably
Supply and demand. A truck, pickup truck and the plow is one thing.
Yeah.
But these are so, there's no demand for them. It's just, that's why they're so, and that's why they're so expensive.
And hopefully we get some money back, like Emeritus or whoever said it, somebody here said it, but we've talked about it. So we have tons of small municipalities or townships behind us. And I know for a fact, they're watching this truck.
Well, I've had.
We get into a betting war and we may actually be the winner on this one here too. So just looking down the road, that may help us out too, right?
I wouldn't be surprised if we get $100,000.
I was thinking a couple hundred.
Anyone for 250 or 3?
You might-
Gotta look at. I'm not gonna get a couple more years anyway. At least we gotta go back to exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Because that purchase doesn't affect the budget right now, because we'd be borrowing, I think there's some work to be done and to come back to council at a later date and report to council. Because that triggers the order.
That's right.
Because
But don't forget, they'll only want 25% down before you start, before you order the truck.
it depends who the bidder or who the,
Who it is and how they operate and what we want to do, and they're all slightly different.
You ain't gotta do it. I'm sure you.
I'll give you, like, if we end up going that route and there's a deposit required, depending on what it is, we might be able to cash flow ourselves, and then when we actually buy it, tender to, get a debenture from IO if that's who we're with. We either debenture the entire amount and put that money back into, you know, coffers, or just do the difference. Like if it's a 25% down, or 75%. We could get an approval, let IO fund the deposit. Yes, we're gonna pay construction interest rates. I know it's not construction, but that rate till we get it. And then debenture the whole amount. We're only adding to the interest cost, so if we don't cash flow or deposit ourselves, but you know, if they want 25% of 750, it's a big enough number still.
I think I'll feel.
There's ways to slice it, but I think there's more work to be done here. Yeah, so.
Yeah. Anyway, we're in support. I get a sense, everyone around the table, we need a new buffer and, yeah.
Also keeping in mind, if we prolong this, and that prolongs everything else, and then that starts putting our trucks a little.
So how quick can you get the work done? And report to council?
Pretty quick.
Don't prolong too much.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were putting up your. Okay, good. Okay, well, certainly that was a good,
With that, so
69,000.
yeah, so
Yes.
that is what is the budget item right now.
That's what's year one, is putting aside $70,000 this year towards that purchase.
Right, but if we wanted to put in for the pumper truck, do we have to put aside?
You don't have to, but it just means we're not starting to fund that reserve till next year. Another way to look at it, if you want to put down,
I know where she So, yeah.
Right, 25%, should
So
we
it'd be-
put that as a budget line
That's
item?
right, say you have 72,000, not 750.
Right,
So just so I know what she's trying to say or ask. So you're 100% right. So that would come out,
right.
72 would go in.
No,
But at this point, we're saying just the reserve.
It is.
Yeah, you're explaining what, yes, I hear you.
Yeah. Like if council says, no, we like this, but let's start it next year, yes, we're taking 69 out. That's option one. Option two is if we put 70 this year and 70 next year, and next year we gotta pay a deposit, we've actually got 140 cash that we're not borrowing for. Depends what you wanna do.
Okay.
Because that 70 could be used to put as a deposit.
unless they
The
want,
only thing, that's one thing, but I know what Steph was coming forward with was borrowing the entire first one. The 70 is for the next truck.
Okay.
So there's a few different ways to plan it, I guess I would say.
It would just push everything back if we
Yep.
prolong it.
no, I agree with what you're saying.
So we're wanting to know how we need to purchase the truck essentially and how much money we need to come up with.
And make sure they'll carry the price. That's what I'm saying, because you're talking about an extra 90,000, but if we do buy it now, will they carry that price right through for the 2 years till it's ready?
Well, they carry the cabin chassis or build it individually anyways, the cabin chassis and then the
Cabin
rest.
chassis is a big thing, get across it, because
That's the big.
We need to find out how, can we buy the cabin chassis in advance? Will the price hold on that? Will the price hold on the second phase of the truck purchase? You know, if we were to award it this year to them.
Yeah.
And we don't receive it in 2 years.
The cabin chassis we can for sure. That was a question that I asked them. The rest of it. At this point, last I heard, yes, but. I don't know.
Another thing,
Wait, Councillor Cat.
Yeah, we had that discussion of
There.
the manufacturers. They will, just lost it here. But, we're going to a single source company then. That's, so we're like to go out and bid these trucks out.
Really limiting your tender.
You're limiting who you're dealing with. So that's the other downside, I guess, if you want to say, because not everybody's doing it. There's one company I know for a fact that's doing it. They'll hold your cabin chassis. If you know that you're buying the fire truck through them, but other companies are not doing that. So then you limit yourself to the price for that truck.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So,
but at least we'll have the information and they'll put it out.
yeah, so it's.
I think that's essential.
Right, I think what we need to find out from them as well is who's got financing options. And we don't really maybe have to go to Iowa or RBC. Cause I find what's happening over the years is we're going to the same company for funding or for debt, basically. It'd be nice to spread it around as well. So I mean, they may not have bad rates.
And especially if we're also looking at a fire.
I don't,
So we're also looking at a fire hall eventually. So
Yeah.
we need to keep that source of funding available for that. So I think that's a very good suggestion to look at.
you know, with Iowa as well, we're tied in with Castle Home. We know that. We
Yeah.
know there's a bit of eyes watching us on all municipalities, right, that are involved with Castle Home through Iowa. So there's nothing wrong with doing that.
No.
I mean, sometimes even if, you know, it's a little bit higher of an interest rate, I'm not talking 2% or anything like that, but sometimes it just makes sense to say, let's go with it, right? The approvals are a little easier sometimes when you deal directly with the company as well for financing versus the IOs and that, so.
Yeah, which
I think we need to,
your debt capacity will be so high, some of the smaller municipalities won't be able to get money from Iowa, right? Because they're like, all we do since calendar, they're up there in the 80%. We're still sitting at 13 or 14%. Some of these issues are gonna come up. Are they gonna be able to get the money?
so in November, I'll let council know, I had an email from Iowa. A representative from Infrastructure Ontario dealing with Castle Home file, starting to question financials and FIRs. So I know someone's keeping a tight eye on all the municipalities. I had a conversation with some of the other CEOs. They also got emails from the same person at IO. Why is your figure in your FIR this and what is this and why? One of them was asked, well, why did you run a deficit and not a surplus? There's some eyes. If there's eyes on us for something we only guaranteed, the same eyes are gonna be looking when we come to borrow.
Yeah.
Right? So I think. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Chickens are coming home to roost.
Well, we said, funding Castle, we didn't want to affect our own borrowing capacity, right?
Exactly.
And when we're going to IO, because it's IO, that's why I'm saying let's look somewhere else, right?
One of the things too, if we have some gross years, then we can pay off the truck or. Do
Yes, IO, you can.
IO, you can.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. That's a good point.
Good.
Okay, it's a good discussion. Okay. Okay.
I will tell council, sorry, I don't need to, Mayor. We do have a pre-approval from RBC that's a long-standing $500,000 equipment facility there.
Mhm.
We've never used it.
No.
Now, what does that mean? They're still gonna look at everything, right? It's not like, oh, you have equipment available, here you go. But I'm saying there's probably an option there as well on the equipment side versus like buildings.
Any other questions on the proposal?
Oh, great job.
There's everything. This would be the last year we ever have to borrow money for.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's, I mean, it's so true of everything for the municipality. If we were able to have large reserves, say, so it's a very good from your part. It's just difficult to get there and continue to do what we need to do. But this is like, I find today, like, we don't have our asset management plan completed, but I look at this, I think to me, like, that's part of the asset management plan.
Yeah.
It's all done. I just need to pull it all together.
That's correct, yeah.
Yes.
It's funny, it's always gonna come down to the end where we've said before, whether we have an asset management plan or not, we can't keep on top of the infrastructure. Like, if the deficit comes out that we have a $10 million deficit, it's not gonna matter. We're trying to pass a $2 million budget this year and we know we gotta cut. Right? So, but when you have the info, you can make better decisions.
And
Or
ultimately-
plan better.
And ultimately, I mean, to Councillor Champlain's point, these dollars, they're based on, I mean, that they're quickly outdated in a sense because the data.
Yeah, the only thing with the asset management plan and the massive spreadsheet has an inflationary figure attached to it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and you could change it as the year goes on, and it just changes all the figures. That's the for the.
The static.
Great job.
Thank you.
Only 2 minutes over.
Look at that. We're still, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a break. A 2-minute break?
Sure.
5-minute breaks, a 5-minute break. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next budget is building services. The top of your page should say category 270 to 272. Good. Okay. Freak's not here, so I'm presenting for Tech Reed.
Sound different.
He's back in the office tomorrow. He missed it by a day. So if you want, I can push to the second day. He says, no, Jason, go ahead. Okay, so revenues, we budgeted 147,100, which is about $7,000 more than 2024. You can see from the actuals in 2024, we came in at 147,000. Most of it driven by inspection fees. Inspection fees are what we bill out to other municipalities, so shared services. Quite a big jump in 2024 versus 23 and 2022. You can see it's usually consistent around $17,000. Last year we had budgeted 15 to be a bit conservative and it came in at 21. So I've got it at $18,000 there. The 3,500 under cost recoveries, that's cost recoveries for the township of Chisholm. So we, Techcrete and Paul, when he's here as replacement, will track kilometers and we invoice Chisholm for that. Permit fees, I budgeted $10,000 more over last year's budget, and you can see we came in at about $124,000. That one there, I would normally not budget as high, but it is trending quite high. We still have really good development. Our fees do go up as well. If you look at 2022, kind of when the pandemic was in full force and we were really busy, we had 160 at that time, but a lot of municipalities saw additional activity there as well. But overall, yeah, it's assisting us by about $17,000 this year in additional revenue. Looking below, we've got total expenses of 143,000 over prior year of 215,000. I had mentioned earlier that's mainly due because we had Paul being shadowed from March 2023 until he retired in August last year. Now we're only faced with one employee cost. Going down the list, there's really not that much more to speak of except for computer hardware at $1,500 and office furniture, sorry, at $1,725 right before that. The office furniture, I'll be honest with you, it's already spent. What that was equipment that Techcrete wanted in his office when he took over Paul's. What had happened was in most offices, we had hutches and cork boards and that when we first purchased it. Paul didn't want one at the time, Techcrete did. So we've now gone ahead and purchased that one, the $1,500 in hardware. Techcrete's looking to do something different there in terms of cloud permitting. So it's a software. What we'd like to get to is a time where, and this year's the year for it, where people can submit digital building permit applications with drawings and everything. And when Techcrete responds back and all that, it's all digital. There's no more picking up at the office a permit and that. So that's where the route he'd like to go is strictly digital. So there's a cost for that. It is a software. We've reduced the mileage cost to zero from prior year of 2,000 because we do have a vehicle now available for staff to utilize. It's the same vehicle being used to go to Chisholm. So we're actually, our costs that we have for leases and that, we're billing out a chunk of it to Chisholm. As you can see, 3,000 of about, I think it's about 12,000 our total cost for the year. There are savings in other departments as well because we won't pay mileage rates for someone just say like Leah who does bank runs and that, she can also use the vehicle. Then contract services is the next big item. It's the last line, $7,000 versus last year's budget of $3,000. Now we can look back at 2022 actuals. That's the year before Techcrete started with us. It was only Paul and we were doing shared services with Papineau Cameron. So we actually had costs there. 2023 is when Techcrete came, so we didn't have to contract out to the Papineau Cameron as much. There was a bit, he started in March, so we likely used Shane for a little bit of time there. As well in 2024, Techcrete and Paul had left the office the same week. They went on conference together. That was more for Techcrete to shadow Paul at a session and to get to know people and that. So we still had a little cost there. Part of that 2024 cost as well of 2,100 was Paul retired. It would have been July 30th, I think was the actual date, somewhere around there. he came in still a few times after that to assist Tech Breed. So we've budgeted 7,000 this year for Tech Breed's absence, for basically Paul, and if Paul's not available, then Shane to assist. But it kind of mirrors the 2022 actuals. It's just we've been able to save some of the years with having two staff.
Just a quick question. Under here, you know, got nothing for insurance for the vehicle. Is that captured somewhere else?
General government.
Okay.
So what the idea is that is we're gonna put all the costs under general government. And then the idea is to put a book inside the vehicle that it's you sign in and out based on kilometers. At the end of the year, if there's 10,000 kilometers used and Tech Breed used 8,000, he's gonna pay 80% of the total cost and we're gonna allocate it at year end. Now, I know we're nitpicking a little bit there, but I mean, it's cost accounting. Right? So that's what we've done is budgeted there to be able to then just disperse afterwards. Same with when we use very little fuel for that because it's all battery operated and Tech Breed's pretty good with the vehicle now. We've really used no gasoline, very little gasoline because of the battery. So it depends how you drive it though. That's what it is. Moving on to the next line, we've got training and education revenues. Those are cost recoveries from Chisholm. We've got to deal with Chisholm that when Tech Breed goes away on a training course or for conference, they reimburse us for 50%, including 50% of his payroll for the week. And then the next line, if we look, you got conferences at 5,000 is total training costs. And like I said, half of it's recouped through Chisholm. If you look at the bottom line, in the past, the department for 2024 cost us about 87,500. Sorry, that was budgeted for 2024. The actual costs were about 85,400, pretty close to budget. This year, we're actually gonna have a surplus in that department if everything pans out of $1,380. Legislation, just to let council know, and I don't believe we're gonna hit exactly that, but legislation for building, when you have a surplus, you're supposed to put into a reserve to be put against building costs in future years. The reason being with that is years ago in some municipalities, they were having significant building revenues, but the staffing, they weren't sending staff out to do the inspections. They were having huge surpluses. So the government would come out to say, you can't run big surpluses. You got to put in reserves, can't be used for other departments, got to go back into building. We've not really been in that position. But like I said, I don't think we're going to land exactly that. So really that department helps us significantly this year for our tax levy. It's down about 88,000, 89,000. Questions?
Good budget to present.
Yes.
Courses. Conference courses, seminars for 5,000. Where is he going this year?
It's mainly normally Deerhurst, I believe. I think it's all, sorry.
Blue Mountain.
It switches from Niagara to Deerhurst to Blue Mountain.
Makes sense.
Kind of rotate.
Yeah.
They rotate, so. It doesn't take long for a week, like, you know, we go to a conference and we say it's about 2,500, $3,000 for 3 days, whatever it be. They're gone for the week.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of training that goes on at those as well in sessions and that. A lot of times, and I think this year it's gonna be covered with, there's new building code. There's quite a bit of sessions there to go through changes and amendments.
The higher the surplus we have, the more we would have, we would have to put it into surplus. So in a way,
Balances up.
it balances out best.
In a way, for building, it's best if it gets to zero.
Yeah, nets to zero would be ideal.
Yeah, if we start building a surplus, where are we
Yeah.
really spending it? Because we're not gonna add a staff member, we're not. But there might be, and I'd have to check legislation that
Can we transfer?
every year we produce a report that says what our reserve is, and we gotta keep it in a file in case we're ever asked one day. Well, there's no police at the ministry saying, where's your report, right? Just a piece of legislation from years ago that came because of the city of Toronto is what I've been told.
Okay.
They were banking huge surpluses and there was delays in getting building permits and there was actually no inspection happening and things. So they came up with legislation that blanketed everybody.
Oh,
It's
try to expect and
so. Our next budget, category 240 is bylaw enforcement. I'll go through it fairly quickly. We did have a conversation about bylaw earlier in FPO position. So Our first one, we budgeted $2,500 in POA fines. We only had $190 last year. That's more because if we have a dedicated bylaw person, then hopefully, there's more enforcement, there's more fines, we get more money. Also, if we went into the AMPS, which is just a municipal way of issuing fines and collecting them and being able to put them on taxes if they're not paid, then it's the same thing, whether it be POA fines or AMP revenues. The only thing with that one is the longer it takes to fill the position, then, there's only so much money that's gonna come in, but I wanted to put something there. I think it's important. Salaries and wages, we had a discussion about that earlier. This is a full-time bylaw enforcement position. It's the same pay grid that we were utilizing for the position before. What I did do for that one though is I've gapped it 10 months for the year, because by the time we fill that position, 2 months to be gone. Going down the list, we had 2,500 in the budget last year, and this year I've only budgeted 1,000 for training. The reason being with that one is the last couple applicants we received are already fully trained. So that would be just for something else that may come up. It's a placeholder, but we certainly wouldn't need $2,500. In previous year, the applicants were more heavy on the fire side with no bylaw. So the thoughts were is by the time we put them through municipal law enforcement course with the association, that there'd be travel and there'd be costs for that. So that's why I've reduced it this year. Computer hardware is 0 as well. Last year we budgeted 12, it came in at 13. That was because we purchased a laptop and those kinds of equipment for the position. We split it. Half the cost went here, half went to FPO. There's no need for that this year because we've got that computer. We had also bought a camera, be able to take pictures and that's downloadable onto the computer. So it was half the cost of that. That's about it for costs for that. It is not quite double, but 35,000 more than last year, but that's going from a part-time bylaw to full-time.
And you're looking at filling this position sooner than later.
Yeah, ideally, we'd be able to go back to the candidates that we already interviewed and see if there's an opportunity there. If not, we'd re-advertise basically. The only thing we'd be advertising for bylaw with no FPO, and I think it's a different pool of candidates because some people before would have said, well, no, I know bylaw, I don't know fire, I have no interest. So we'd like to quickly put it out and get it done with if we don't have an opportunity to hire from the applications we've received.
We're gonna go here.
That's our 2025 buckets.
That's where we're looking at our 7%.
If I can get 5 minutes of time to go back to capital. You've heard all the expenses today, which is page 1 of the front, $2,319,000 total capital budget. In there, you've not heard from general government. I'm going to point out one item. Bottom of the page, staff parking lot at municipal office and a walking ramp from the office to the cenotaph, $90,000. So I know I've discussed this with maybe a couple council members in the past, but when we redid this building, because we've only had so much in the budget, we weren't able to address the parking lot on this side, which is basically where the staff park. I'm not sure if you've ever seen the condition of it, but there is some kind of asphalt in there that's fallen apart and there's gravel. And the idea would be to redo the parking lot with a separate entrance off of Corbeil that expands the number of parking spaces. So right now you can double park basically on that parking lot and still have a bit of space. What's been a bit of an issue, we've got 10 people in the office, there's about 10 parking spots. So we're maxed where we are. Some days you get a couple OPP that are here before us, they park there. Now the staff are either parking there or parking across at the cenotaph. You can go park up at the church. But what we're also having issues with is there'll be a funeral, people from the church parking behind us. You can't leave with your vehicle now. Certainly not going to go in church and ask people to move. So we thought about having a dedicated parking lot. Antoine's looked at it so far for costs and it's about $75,000, I believe, is what we've put aside for that. And then also the difference is we've spoke about having a ramp that leads from the front of our building that you go down either a ramp or steps. Ramp makes more sense for accessibility to lead over the cenotaph versus walking around Telfer Road onto Corbeil over there. So I know that was something we've talked about informally in the past.
Yeah, summertime, in the wintertime, it's gonna be a little bit of a pain to try to
Well, Antoine's done, what we did is we found out where our pegs are, so we know what property limits we have. So we know what to work with there. Antoine superimposed it on our mapping system and was able to draw it out, and I believe it brings it to 18. You can squeeze 20 parking lot or parking spots in easy, but we've got to make sure that it's an in and out, like it's a one-way kind of scenario. But you got to make sure you've got space for pushing snow as well. Based on what he's looked at, it's not an issue. It also means that we're probably not going to stockpile a whole pile that sits there all winter. We would have to every now and then come like we do at the arena, get rid of loads sometimes and take them away, right? So
we cut down those trees, cut it at the level of that hill. There would be some, there's work in there.
the idea right now, Mayor, was the old steps that go up, because we have it new to the steps with this building. We'd shave it down so that it's not steps to go up. We lose the trees that are there, the lined up trees. I know we don't want to lose trees, but if you look at the condition of the trees, they're half dead. Like, we can be honest, right? But it would take up that space. Plus, we've already able to double park, plus we still have some space. So Antoine didn't have an issue with turning radiuses and snow removal, but yes, it does mean reducing, bringing the ground level down, sloping down towards the road and removing the trees. Quite a bit of it you can see, like I know when I first saw the cost, I thought, that seems low. The only thing is there's quite a bit that can be done in-house. Was the idea with it, so. Okay, and if we flip the page, this is the revenues. So like I mentioned, I don't want to, we've got about $955,000 or $956,000 in grant money. Most of it's road related, except for the last line of about $157,000 is ISIP. If you look at the next section, we've got about $1,133,000 in capital levy that's in our operating. 710,000 of it from the summary is principal and interest. That leaves us with about 423,800 cash to spend on items. If you look at the total list, it's 423,800 in cash. Minus, we've not included $25,000 for the air conditioner for the OPP. So we're either increasing our budget by $25,000, bringing it from 7.3 to an easy 8, or we're cutting items and fitting in the OPP.
We're removing the tractor at the facilities and recreation.
Which is exactly that value, yep. I thought there'd be other items that council wants to. There's nothing used from reserves in this section, and if you remember in the operating, we budgeted to put 1% in reserves, 69,217. Long-term debt was the pumper truck and the Corbeil Fire Hall training facility land that. Now, we do understand that the pumper truck would be another year of borrowing, but this is how things balance to come to $2,319,000. That's where we're at. Our next move is what council wants to do, because at first we had set a meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. But I take council's direction, how you want to proceed with this.
I might as well do it. Well, this is me. I might as well do it now if we can. Tomorrow morning, I can't make it. I've got a lawyer's at 9 and at 10 o'clock, I got a dentist, so I would be out of commission.
Do we start with the operating levy first? Are we comfortable? Is that all right with everyone? We can try and so it's right now we're at 7.31. So basically, do we say you need to go back and shave and we've identified areas as part of our discussion. And we leave it to him to go back. And we also identified maybe looking at the reserves that was available for Parkside dedication.
So we've got $4,300 available for Fire Marquee. Year-end balance 2024.
Okay.
4,300.
Right.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I want to check whenever, because I knew this was something you wanted to know, or it was brought up. And then in our parkland dedication, based on my calculations, was about $48,000.
Okay, so that's.
What
personally I would say we use most. Yeah. Okay.
I do know that there's money coming in for Fire Marquee in 2025. I know that. I believe there's 2 outstanding fires right now.
Okay, could we take that into
I
account?
can rough wall it, like throw a figure out. The tough part is we know what our costs are, but you got to make sure that the policy of the person that had the structure fire, you know, their policy might say we cover fire department costs of 5,000. Our cost was 10. We're not going to get 10. We're going to get 5. Right? Plus, we lose a certain percentage because Fire Marquee keeps their cut. I forget what the percentage is. So I would say we've got probably $15,000 that's probably gonna come in 2024 for that.
Let me throw a number out there. You're looking at 7.31, might be a little bit less.
The tough part with that is let's take off 3.14, which is not us at all, right? Like, it doesn't really leave a lot. You're talking 4.17.
4.17.
Yeah.
4.17 increase for 100,000. What does that make a difference? Like about 15 or $20?
When I looked this morning at 7.13%, it was about $4.52 per 100,000 of assessment.
Sorry, how much?
$4.52 per 100,000 of assessment. The average house in East Ferris value based on MPAC, which we know is not correct, but it's about just say $300,000. So you're talking about $15, right? A month. Or yeah, $15
Per 100,000.
no, at that point, if you have just say $5 a month, $4.52 a month per 100,000 of assessment is your increase.
And then the reserves would cover the reserve that we would redirect to
Yeah.
our,
And if I may, on 100,000, it's $1,184, just say for 100,000 of assessment. Last year was 1,130. So you're talking about $54 a year on 100,000 of assessment. So if you have a $300,000 home, you're about $150.
And again, a lot of that is not us. A lot of that is our ABCs. We
ABCs.
have a small percentage of what we're looking at as far as ourselves.
so us it's 4%. We can
Yeah.
agree that that's basically what we're looking at. We didn't add in here the 69,000 for reserves that we had identified. We wanted to maybe put aside for the pump truck.
I've added it in. It's in the 7.3.
Oh, it is in the 7.
Yeah, because it's right there, Mayor.
Okay,
So it's in there. It's 7.3.
okay. Okay,
If
then,
you said today, yes, we agree with everything, we're at 7.3, including that 1% of reserve, except the OPP AC was not in there. If we switch it out for the tractor, we're 7.3.
okay, so let me then add, and then if we were to take the 19,000 that may come from firefighter Marquee, and the 48,000 from, or 40,000 from,
Sorry, what did you say for Farm Market?
so the 15 plus the 4 would be 19. 15 that's to come in during the year.
I had mentioned that this year we should receive about $15,000 from Fire Marquee.
Yeah, thanks.
You want to be a bit more, to be more conservative?
Well, let's
Let's go 15,000 then instead, so.
No,
Yes, as the chief said that we were expecting 2 settlements, for
let's even say
not
it's,
15,000.
let's even say it's 10
10
plus
plus
the
4,
4 we have,
14,
right?
plus parkland dedication, we have 48. So if we said 40,
Okay,
and then so we add that into our, that would bring us down 1%.
that's 54,000.
Well, not quite, yeah. So, and if we could get more, then we could come down to 3% or 3.17.
If you tell me shave 1% with using those reserves, I'll find it.
Yes, I think you could. The things we just.
Are you okay with 6.3?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Councilor Trahan? Just because you were asking the question today about,
It's pretty. I have a lot of questions.
yes. But Deputy Mayor,
I need a moment.
you need a moment, okay.
What'd you say? You keeping that 7.3 or you went to
Shave another % off.
another shaving that, so you're going on to 6.3?
6.3, and you know what? 3.1 is ABCs.
Yeah, I know.
So
that's what I was saying, like, what's the difference? You got 3%. 3%.
Instead of 4.
17.
That we're actually spending extra.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
That we have no control over.
yeah, exactly. So,
And again, I want to go back to what I said, it may not happen. I hope it doesn't happen. If the tariffs fall in and we start cutting too much, it's going to come back and bite us.
exactly, Rick. Exactly.
There's 3 or 4 municipalities I've seen now. They're not good examples. Obviously, there's some larger ones that are passing in the 6 range, 6 something, 6 point something. There's not a lot of people that pass budgets yet. Like even City of North Bay doesn't begin till March, their deliberations this year. So it's hard to start saying what's going on. But what I've seen from different news outlets, they're the 6s. So I just thought, because I was trying to get some figures in advance as comparators, but they're not good comparators to us.
yeah. So Deputy Mayor,
Yeah, I mean, I have a little list, but it's like little tiny things, right? It's hard to get to 79, right? So, and it doesn't, if things go south or south in the south, it is, we leave ourselves at risk, so. I guess.
It's an easy sell.
Great.
It's an easy sell because it's stuff that we don't control. If it wasn't for the ABCs and Castle Home especially, I wish it was a separate item. That's what, 3%?
Castle Homes, 140, just is 2%.
2%, just on Castle Home.
Yeah.
That we have no control over.
Like right
It
now,
happened in the first place, but it did. Now we're paying the piper.
like if you take Castle Home, our, increase in policing, although I'm using 11,000 there, but policing, Castle Home and East Side are over 3%. Yep, on its own, right? And policing is down an ABC of that 3.14. It's in policing costs. Yep. There's been some, it's unfortunate because we got 116,000 more in OPF this year. If we did not receive that 7.3 is, another almost, not quite 2.
9.
But it's 1.78.
But you cannot go with a 0% increase.
No, you can't do that.
That's, you always have to between 2 and 3% is what I feel comfortable. That's what we did at the health unit. I think we're 2.85, I think is what we heard.
You could say shave a little bit more if you want that. I mean, it could be, I find that, Monsieur Trottier, you've done an incredible job. There's been a lot of work here. You're not coming in with, there's not much fat. There's not much, but there's a few places where there could be, but then we don't know what could happen during the year. So we need a little bit of buffer. But I mean, we look for your guidance here.
So let's say we went to the advocacy group for Castle Home goes to the government and they get $3 million a year. Would that change the levy?
No,
Not this year.
not this year.
Not this year.
It's only gonna help when the building gets debenture.
Right.
We'll start paying the capital subsidy in year 1.
Okay,
So it's not until that loan is done.
that's for another year at least.
22% right now, could be more next year.
Exactly.
That's
Yes.
the problem.
And to me, it looks like it's gonna be more than 2%.
Yes, I think.
Because as they draw more money from IO,
Yes.
borrowing gets higher, their interest gets higher because unless rates drop, but rates have dropped quite a bit there. I'm not sure how much more they're dropping. Like the last quarter point there, it seemed to be, that might be the end. I don't know.
And let's make it perfectly clear, when this whole scenario started, we were against it. Not for it.
The costs are too high.
The rebuild?
Yep.
Single source.
Because I guess I was thinking if things change, could we go back and look at budget? And like, let's say tariffs come in and hit us really hard, then,
Got to come back and look at it.
right.
You know, like to me, tariffs are almost like an emergency. I find the world of emergencies is evolving. You know, we had COVID. I mean, you don't consider that an emergency, but to some extent, in a broad sense, this is almost an economic emergency that could come forward. So, I mean, there's unknowns there for sure.
What we would do is utilize, so there's 2 ways to deal with it. You use reserves or the 70,000 we said we were gonna put forward. We said, unfortunately, we had to spend it, or you start looking at what's not been spent yet. That's what Antoine did last year. He said, I can't do crack ceiling. I'm way too high on certain items. Canceled. So things you've not acted on yet, you're able to. I'll give you an example. For some reason, if the AC wasn't on the OPP yet, there was no signed contract, it wasn't tender. Sorry, we're gonna cut it. Although that's not a priority for me to cut.
That's why I said, have you got your prices out there for resurfacing the road? The AC goes up because of the tariff. Well, that cost is gonna change. He's got in the budget. That's why it might be cut somewhere else. Right now, it's the worst case scenario. It is what we're at right now.
Councillor Kelly?
Quite frankly, looking at the big picture, if tariffs start impacting municipalities, we'll be looking at provincial and federal government intervention. Okay, because everybody's gonna be in the same position. So I'm not concerned. Obviously, anyone with any thoughts about financial, responsibility is concerned about tariffs. But quite frankly, that'd be at another level for government intervention. And that's why we have a government, that's why we pay taxes. As far as our deal here is, I'm sorry, I had another commitment this morning. Is there anything major that I missed in the first hour or so? Okay. No, I'm quite frank, I'd be happy with 7.31. In fairness, if you want to bring it down one, that's fine too.
In the dry hydrants, my impression, they need to discuss what they need to dock there, and there's going to be further discussion. I'm not sure we're ready to go ahead with McPherson Drive, but we have all the equipment, we're ready. I mean, if it was to change, maybe in the budget, we could free up things and it could go ahead, but that is one that could be, you know, I mean, it's an example of what we may not be able to do this year.
And just as an aside, I don't know if anyone realizes what a great deal we're getting with our fire department.
Wait.
Because a lot of departments have gone now with part-time wages. And we're not even in ballpark. So it's a heck of a great savings. We've got dedicated people. What we mantra, Steve, back in the day, no one's asking for extra money, but give them the tools to do the job.
Yes.
We need the two.
I mean, so I
language.
agree 100%. It's just that he wants to coordinate the work with our, so they may not, they'll need to coordinate, and the other group may not be quite there yet in our, what they need to do to
But
plan.
when he's ready to go,
Yes,
if
ready to be supported.
we want it done, that's for sure.
You don't,
No.
you know.
No,
Yeah.
What were your figures again? We had-
15,000 from Fire Marquee and 40,000 from the Parkland dedication.
Yeah.
So that would be.
Third one, okay.
No, and then we said in general, if you were able to, and then we would replace the tractor with the air conditioning.
Mhm.
And then you would look at maybe some of the elements that we talked about, maybe some of the training. I mean, I think the point's well made about us for training. Now, at this point, I don't anticipate going to AMO. And so there's that one, and we'll go ahead.
quite frankly, I heard rumors about that. Our conferences is our training ground. It's not only our training ground, it's our networking. Now, if someone doesn't want to network or is unable to socialize and network, that's up to the individual.
Yes.
But the attitude and the unwritten procedure we've always followed is anyone who wants to go to a conference should go because they're valuable for networking. At one time, we had a director of Phenom, a director of Roma, and a director of OBRA. They were all instrumental in bringing a lot of grants and we were batting way above our weight. And we continue to do so. And that's been the basis of our council. And that's why we're one of the leaders in our area. So we've always, and if they're not comfortable networking and socializing, because I find the after hours is as important, if not more important, than some of the seminars being offered. So it is social and contract, because you're dealing with ministers and deputy ministers, and that's what it's all about. That's what a conference is all about. Not for everybody. Some people can do it and some people can't.
So I know for sure I can remove some of the costs there for that. And if there's others that think they are not going to attend a conference, now would be the time to speak up so we can shave some of that. Wait.
Sorry, go ahead. Jeff.
Ahead.
I was gonna say, I can bring it to 5.9%. We can't do the parking lot next door, but we can do the ramp.
You're gonna do one, well, we'll finish it.
Exactly.
Not as that one day they sell the church. You need to get that done too.
Excuse me.
5.9, 5.9.
We need the church first and care.
The daycare. We have two delegations lined up at DSA, by the way. Thank you,
Yeah.
Councillor Kelly, just while we're on that. One to be going for housing and then one for daycare.
And I only mentioned the conferences. I just mentioned it because when I've gone to the conferences and talked to people there and, you know, I enjoy the conferences. I find it all very good, but people are restricted. Other municipalities can only send one or two people. They only get one conference a year. So I know that is a reality for other places.
Yes.
What size, that's what size of municipality or township where they were?
Well, same size.
So
But as long as we get something out of it, and it's when you go there, you get nothing out of it, then I understand, but we always seem to get something out of it. That's what you gotta look at, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I think, you know.
Oh, to move away from the conferences, yes. I understand I just wanna recap here, go back for a second, the dry hydrant out in McPherson Drive. That's been, I just wanna say, Mayor, is that's been a sticking point for a long time. The value of the houses, the number of houses we have down there. We've had some house fires there that we actually saved over the years. We saved houses with minimum damage, but we were so lucky.
Yes.
There was a few things that went into play to save, but one of the biggest ones was we had to set up portable pumps. We had to, for the water and everything down there. If we start losing houses down there, when people know that we have equipment for a dry hydrant here, that we can actually protect people. We're not gonna look so well. I'm just saying, I get you though. There is some work that needs to be there and that's all. And we don't know where that's gonna be. But the only thing is we gotta get kind of.
Gotta give it priority.
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing is too, is if you want to save money, I have no problem with the 6, whatever we talked about there for just briefly. I have no problem with that. But then on the other hand here, if you want to save a little bit of money, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just looking real hard here, but looking real quick. There's $108,500 here for gravel program. We can actually take a look and see what actually roads. I know there's some roads down there. There's quite a bit of material already on the roads that could probably be a savings where the materials could be used ready. There's some roads there, I know for a fact. Voyer Road needs to be touched. You know what I mean? There's some roads that needs to be, Tyfair Road's one road that needs to be touched up on it, but there's other stuff where I'm like, oh, we want to talk about savings? Well, we can start moving that shell around.
That's
Move that from programs.
That's why I think it's always best when we go through these discussions, we highlight the areas, like we've highlighted, and then we leave it to our CEO to sort of make the final adjustments so that we don't get into, I want this, I want that. So that sort of discussion, so we take good note into the gravel. And so if we say to our CEO, we're comfortable with 6.1, or if he's like 5.9, then he works to make those final changes with the notion that we would have reserves. And I've highlighted what I won't participate in for a conference. There will be a saving there. And so that allows him then to finish it and make sure we don't make an incorrect decision based on where the needs actually.
We're sitting at 6.3
total right now.
If we shave 1% off, we're at 6.31. We're at 7.3.
What's the difference between the 6.31 and the 1.3 again? What was the difference on that?
1%.
Pardon me, 70 something?
70,000. So we look like we're doing exactly.
We were using about 14,000 plus 40,000, 54,000 of reserves. And then I was gonna find the difference of about 16,000.
How about we were in touch reserves?
So this is the parkland dedication
Oh, yes.
and
Okay.
the fire marquee. So it's not the reserve. So we're, because
It's in reserve, but we're taking it back out of it.
yes, I'd say that is the right thing, because the philosophy of parkland dedication is you're supposed to use it. That's what the government said. Don't accumulate them, use them for what you need. So we would do that. We'd use a fire marquee for what we need. So we shave us at 1%, which is great. And means we're looking at us 3.1. 3.2 is our municipal part. The other part is the ABCs.
Yeah, we have to put 3.2, just saying those three.
And we make sure that that's what comes out in our communications, that us as a municipality, our operating budget for the municipality only increased by.
Well, we're 3.15 and ABC's at 3.15 to bring us to 6.3. It's good. I'm fine with it. So I think what we need to do though is we send out the tax pamphlet. Maybe we change it this year. And we've always done a pie graph. Maybe we have to go a little different to say
Half.
the increase is 6.3. ESAP, Castle Home, other ABCs, municipal. Simple. It's up there. What's that, sorry?
That would clarify.
Yes.
I know Council Champagne had a conversation with me about having a separate levy on our tax bill that shows Castle Home, but in a way, it kind of singles them out when there's other increases, like DSAPs hit us every year with almost 1%. Never did that to them, right? But I think putting it right in the tax bill and people opening it no better way to show it there.
I think we need,
Hospital, it shows a separate line item,
Yes,
gone next year.
we no longer do that.
Yeah.
In 2018, when we moved to the new tax software, we got rid of the hospital levy, but that was the idea in the past was for that reason. I think it was to send a message like this is why there's an increase, but then over the years, people are just kind of used to us paying the hospital levy. It's also not a big hit anymore, 28 versus 75,000 when we first started, 75,000 a year, right?
that next year we need to celebrate 750,000 we did.
At the end of,
At the
yeah,
end.
after we pass next year's budget, we've given $750,000 to the hospital.
Yeah, and we're the only municipality, right? You had said in, beside
That
North
value.
Bay, yeah.
It wouldn't hurt if we're sending that out on a pie. And you split the pie in half with the agency. That shows, because they're provincially mandated. Some people don't understand it.
Yeah,
So let's,
it's a good idea.
no,
You put 100%, like 100,000 per assessment and show what the difference is between last year and this year.
Yep.
Then it reacts, right?
I could be completely municipality section and each ABC versus taking the municipal, you know, and divvying up. So we could do it differently, just based on levy.
I think
Okay.
when we're dealing with people on council and any council, we know what ABC means. But people have no idea what provincially mandated, how little control, we have no control, bottom line.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's important to list what we have. This, we have no choice. This is what we control, the 3.2. But I'm fine, with just if we're putting to vote, I'm fine with the 6.3.
Okay.
We're looking to pass this today, then, in that amount.
But
We just don't do tax rates.
Are you comfortable with this today? Are you comfortable with this today? Are you comfortable? You said.
I am.
Councilor Champagne, you don't? Okay, so we'll move forward. Yes.
Let's pass that over to Jason then to fill out.
Good comments too, like, you know, we keep working as a team. And what's nice about it is we come out of this united. It's not like, I didn't want this or I didn't want that. At least asking all today.
No, it's a good idea.
You know, the biggest thing is, because we look at it realistically. And that's where we all be on. We look at it realistically and what we can do and can't do, and we move ahead and everybody agrees on it.
It would be different too if the municipality had come forward with, you know, there's been a lot of work done here. So for.
Oh, heads up.
They've done the chopping, they've done the examination, they've done the hard work, so it makes a difference as well. And but anyway, I thought the discussion was outstanding. Excellent.
Please. Councilor Cahan, Councilor Kelly. That the Council for the Municipality of East Ferris adopts the 2025 operating budget as amended in the amount of $9,963,649, representing a tax levy increase of $436,439 or 6.31%.
May I just add, may I add to the motion of which that 200 of that is for our partner organizations, so that we divide the amount right there in the resolution.
We can.
Okay, so that it's clear, so that it's so that.
And where, I don't know how you want to name it, but it's 217,347 is ABCs, like inclusive of that amount.
Of which the municipality has no control of.
With the ABCs accounting for $217,347.
Yes. And then I would actually put agencies, boards, commissions.
And of which the municipality has no control of.
The soonest we've ever passed our budget, February 10th. And whereas February 10th is the soonest we've ever.
Are we also doing the capital budget today?
Sure. What happens is the levy for capital is in the operating. When we're like, I don't think in the past we've done it. No, we have a resolution?
I do.
Oh, yes, pass it over there. Thank you. It's funny because when you read operating, I was gonna say drop the word operating, it's our total budget is that because of the levy, but if you have a separate one, it's perfect. Does? It's the same value except we're swapping over projects.
Well,
Negative Morales. Deputy Mayor Rogers and Councilor Champagne. That council for the municipality of East Ferris approved the 2025 capital budget in the amount of $2,300,050.
That's with the understanding as well that the pumper truck's not moving forward until we bring a report to council.
So the pumper truck though is in there in that amount?
It's in that amount. You want to fully pull it out?
I think we should fully pull it out until we know what the costs are. And so we're going ahead with that, but I don't think we should include it in our.
It's good either way you want to do it.
I think it would be the proper way because we don't know exact costs.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
need to find out all.
Sure.
Just remove that to make sure.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he knows his marching orders with regards
Yes.
to, so
You got
Either way, it has to be a report to council and
it. Yeah, we're good with that and
to get those prices.
with those prices. Yes. So that means long-term debt is only the 190,000.
Correct.
We read it again.
No, all in favor. I say bon, carry. Thank you so much. Adjourn this?
We're gonna send you, please. Return in. So we do now adjourn this meeting at 3:31 PM. And that's it. We don't need to meet tomorrow.
Okay, well, tomorrow night at 5:30, 5.
fine. One thing.